Do we have any
didn't ask to
additions or
stay.
omissions to the agenda?
If they had asked to stay, they could have.
I don't think so, Frank.
I make a motion, we accept the agenda as written.
Thanks, Betty.
You're welcome.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
How about 138 River Street?
I think
Anybody here for 138 River?
You know, I don't think that there is.
it was just.
I think for the first, actually the first two, really the first three, we were waiting on the DEP file number. So for 138 River and 96 Turner, they both came in with no comments. So for both of those, I think you can just close an issue.
I make a motion to close 138 River Street.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. I make a motion to close 96 Turner Road.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
And then we're gonna make motions to issue both of those too.
Yeah, later.
Well, we can do
Can
it.
we do it with the rest of them?
We'll do
I
it.
don't care. Do you want to do their order?
Oh, no, you're right, we can just wait and issue
Yeah.
later. Okay, yeah.
Because we got some more.
That sounds good, so we'll just take 11 phone.
11 Foam Road. Hey, we already opened this, Paul, the last meeting, the one that you weren't at.
Sassy.
You want to explain what we're doing, or you know?
You can fill it, sir.
The owner owns the existing dwelling at 11 Foam Road. The upper portion that's shown in brown is the area of the structure that will be both removed and partially reconstructed. The front part, which is striped out by the street, will be an open deck, which will be added to the newly enclosed portion, which is shown in solid brown. That blue line represents the silt fence around it. It is in land subject to coastal storm flowage. There are no performance standards. The elevations do meet your, they do meet the FEMA regulations for the height of the first floor of that dwelling. There's no changes in the grade. That lot is fairly flat. We do show spot grades around the house. It'll be on a poured concrete foundation. Again, it'll be coming out 8 feet in front of the existing home that you see in the white cross hatch area. So we'll put that on and answer any questions you have.
Any?
No, I don't have any questions right this moment. The deck's new too. What's that gonna be on?
Yeah, the open deck will be new.
What will it be on? Is it gonna be up in the air, or is it gonna be on the ground?
Yeah, the first floor of the house is at 15.3. The first floor elevation right here is 14.8, but they're gonna pick it up to match the first floor. This will be 6 inches lower, and there's a new set of stairs here and here to walk off the deck. That's the existing stairs. This is the existing portion that's gonna be raised, and they're gonna reconstruct from here to over here. That's 8 feet by, I think, 30 feet total. And then they'll have the open deck in front of it.
Well, what I was actually asking, Paul, is it on the foundation, or is it on piers, pilings, the deck?
This will be, I believe this will be on piers or sonotubes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And then this brown area will be an extension of the foundation.
Yeah,
full foundation.
right, thank you.
No questions.
Jim?
No, I'm good. You want to see it?
Amy?
No, I mean, it's inland subject to coastal storm flowage.
Yeah, phone.
Yeah, so it appears to meet the requirements of the act and our bylaw. Pretty straightforward.
Anybody in the audience? I'll take a motion.
I make a motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
think we agreed that we were gonna try to,
We're gonna make a motion to issue these two.
issue that one as well,
Yes,
and we'll do that all at the,
it's on the list.
all right?
All right, thank you.
39
Trail.
Brunswick Street, there's a request to continue that to July 20th?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, Jen, I don't have the book,
Okay.
but I can make a motion to continue 39 Brunswick Street to July 20th at 6:20.
or a second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
115 Grove Street?
Good evening. For the record, Gregory Morris, registered engineer, Morris Engineering, representing the applicant Henry Holmes. This is a notice of intent associated with a new single-family home and a common driveway located at 115 Grove Street. I had presented this project to the commission, I believe, in 2 previous meetings. We've addressed all of the commission comments that we've received to date. But since the last meeting, which was about 2 weeks ago, we've gone to the planning board, we've gotten planning board's approval, we've gotten planning board sign off on the stormwater permit, which they are issuing for this case. So we're here hopefully requesting the final order of conditions. Again, the project real quick, Grove Street at the bottom of the page, lot 1 being the existing house, lot 2 is the new house. The wetlands here were approved through an ANRAD process with the commission. The proposed work with the new home and the configuration of the common driveway complies with the 50-foot buffer in all regards. The proposed house is 85 feet from the closest wetland resource area, and again, we've received the approval of the planning board, their wetlands consultant, or sorry, their peer review consultant, and the stormwater permit has been approved. So I turn it over to you.
Penny?
I think you've given us everything we've asked for. I looked at the planting plan today. I just, boy, when you go out there and look at it, it looks fine on the plan, but it just looks so tight when I'm out there.
The common driveway will really serve to kind of separate and divide the site out right now. It's
Yeah,
kind of a-
now I think
mismatch.
that's probably a
So-
lot of my visual problem, is the way the driveway, it goes in and then there's a circle and
Yeah.
it's like, how are you gonna get a house in there?
Yeah.
I really don't have another question at this point. I do like the plantings and I wanna make sure they're all done.
There was a condition of the planning board approval, and I expect it to be yours as well.
That, no, not just, but they'll get done
Yep.
in a timely fashion. Because that's gonna mean a lot to the
Nice
town.
colors.
I don't see it on this.
This has got the
Yeah.
pretty colors.
I
in it.
know. I look at it here now.
Doug?
I'm good.
Jen?
Have we asked about conservation markers on this one yet?
No.
I thought somebody else might say no or yes.
If you wanted conservation markers along the 50-foot buffer, we'd be happy to place them there, you know, as a condition
Yeah.
of approval. Yeah.
And then the other thing I was just curious about was, is there's a lot of lines here. Is there a limit of work established around that proposed, border retaining wall? It's just,
This
That is?
Yeah, see that dot?
Okay.
in there? It's basically almost following the 50.
Yeah,
okay. So the conservation markers would be something I would be interested in.
I'm good. Amy?
Yeah, so I concur with what Greg says about planning board and meeting the review requirements of the stormwater permit. I am aware that there is no approved septic at this point, but that's okay because it is outside the 100.
Right.
for us. There's also logistically, as proposed, the lot does not have the area, but again, that's another board and officer's approval for area for our buildable lot. Special conditions that I was considering would be, putting out would be regarding the planting and monitoring of their replication or mitigation area, probably a minimum 2-year window by a professional wetland scientist. Also appending the O&M, long-term pollution prevention plan to the order, sort of require the maintenance of the stormwater systems. Also, to Jen and Penny's note, to require that the plantings are put in early in the process, not as a last-minute item,
Yeah.
which we have plenty of sites out there where I could think of a couple that are bugging me, actually, because the house is totally up. Lots are graded, but the mitigation that we agreed to, not in.
Yeah.
So I think that's important to have it done early in the process.
So how do you condition that?
We just ask them to do it in the front end of the project.
Well, do you think it should be a little more specific? It should be installed prior to,
Occupancy, I don't know. Because, I mean, you don't want to, don't want to do the final plantings when the site's a mess, but
right?
you want to do it before they leave the site.
Like you say, right now, we've got some sites that are undone, and then how does it get done, and who does it go on?
Right, and then the house is sold to a new owner, and they're not even really in the loop.
Well, the
As
only
to
thing
the
hopefully that would
requirement.
happen is if they came in looking for a CFC like they have before, when the house is under construction or something, we'd wind up with some funds to guarantee the planting.
Well, that's a good idea, to do
So-
guaranteed.
If, I would say, maybe something to the effect, if the plantings aren't in place prior to occupancy, then we need to come up with a number.
We'll have to work on that, but yeah, I like
think that
that.
might be the way to deal with that.
How do you find out about occupancy, though?
You don't always.
So that might not
They
be,
have to, the plantings have to be done before occupancy, so maybe just give a ballpark, figure out a ballpark figure and say, we need this to hold.
Yeah, I think if you ask for
Period.
money, then you know there's more assurance that it's gonna get done.
yeah.
Because on one that, I'm thinking that's on Common Street. I
Yeah,
think it's 31 Common. Like, every time I drive by that house, I wonder about that one. And that would have been, it's just like that, this scenario on that one.
Yeah. The planning board is requesting surety on this to make sure that the plantings in the common driveway already be constructed. It's a condition of their approval, and they're already requesting, I think, $25,000.
oh, all
Yeah,
right.
so you can be assured that that will be
Well,
done.
we just didn't know that.
You're suggesting another 25,000, is that what's there?
Yeah,
Okay, I think she said 30.
Yeah. No,
I was trying to say it's covered, that's all. I think we're gonna be okay.
gets done. I'm tired of them.
One of the other comments I had on earlier in the process, which was just establishing a limit of work around the whole work area in a construction entrance, that's on there, right, Greg?
Yeah, there's a stabilized construction entrance at the start, and then the limit of work is the limit of the tree line, which we'll stake out a limit of work and a limit of clearing as part of the construction.
Okay, we wanted to have that around the perimeter, so on the south side too, and on the street side.
Yeah, it is.
So, I mean, the street side is a stone wall defining
Okay.
that. Along the south side here, we have an erosion control, it's the dashed line. It starts at the front corner of well, actually, it runs along the frontage too.
Oh, okay,
So it
that's,
is wrapped around. the
okay,
back.
that's what I thought, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that was it.
Anybody in the audience? Steve?
The only other thing that I would comment on is we also, as part of the scenic roadway hearing, we were taking a tree down at the entrance, and we're replacing that with a number of trees that are gonna be given to the town to use throughout town, as well as some on site.
And that's something that you
They're
do
on
with
the
the planning
plan.
board.
It's all done, it's done and approved, but just when you talk about vegetation or tree removal or anything, we're giving back quite a few trees as well.
Anybody else?
Make a motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Nice plan.
Zero Country Way, there's a request to continue that to April 27th.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. I make a motion to continue Zero Country Way to April 22nd at 6:20.
A second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
47 Town Way,
Yes.
want to flip this up? Do you want to? Jeff?
So-
Where?
Last hearing, we took them together,
All right,
47 and 48.
yep, I think we should do it again.
Could we push this and do 166 and 148 Jericho? Is it,
Yes,
Jeff DeLisi should be here with us, I expect.
On this one?
On this one.
I don't have a problem doing that.
Okay, so you're gonna go 166?
166 Jericho.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, yeah.
make a huge house.
So actually, I got to open this,
Jericho Road.
on March 2nd, 2020, at 6:25 PM, the Town Hall, Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws, and Section 30700, Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Paul and Deborah Jablonski to raise and rebuild a dwelling located at 166 Jericho Road, Scituate. Butters and other interested parties are invited to attend.
That's the existing.
Oh, they pulled it back.
Good evening. Again, for the record, Gregory Morse, registered engineer, Morse Engineering, representing Paul and Deborah Jablonski. This is a notice of intent associated with a raise and reconstruct of a single-family home at 166 Jericho Road. Looking at the plan, the property is located right at the intersection of Jericho Road and Lighthouse Road. It fronts on Scituate Harbor to the east. The property line here is shown in black. There's an existing single-family home, number 166, which was built in 1972, located here on the site. The house is connected to public water, public sewer, electric service out Jericho Road. Along the eastern lot line here with the boundary of Scituate Harbor is a coastal bank. That coastal bank I've highlighted in blue, and off of that in red is the 50-foot, and in green the 100-foot buffer zones.
Yep.
The land is subject to coastal storm flowage. It's a FEMA zone at AE elevation 15, taking up the front 80% of the site. The rear portion along the harbor is in the velocity zone, at elevation 16. Topography on the site is generally at elevation 8 at Jericho Road down to elevation 4 at the back of the lot. Relatively flat lot until you get to the coastal bank where it drops down rather abruptly. I brought a photograph of the site. This is right along the back of the building. You can see the top of the coastal bank is well defined. It's the top of the stones right there. The proposal is to take down the existing house and to construct a new home. The outline of the new home here is in bold. We've pulled the house forward on the lot. Where the existing house sits, it's 2 feet from the top of the coastal bank and has a deck that overhangs the coastal bank. Our proposal pulls the house forward 6 feet. It removes the deck area from being inside of the coastal bank, and it provides a setback of 8 feet now from the top of the boulders to the corner of the structure. The building will be elevated up on a concrete foundation. The current house that's there now does not comply with FEMA requirements, but the proposed house obviously will. Floodplain is at elevation 15. We've eliminated the house from the velocity zone. Where it currently sits, it is within the velocity zone. The proposed house is outside of the velocity zone.
The whole house.
The whole house. The first floor is at 17, therefore providing 2 feet of freeboard. 1 foot is the requirement. We have an erosion control barrier around 3 sides of the site. The frontage along Jericho Road we left open. There is a paved driveway that would be used for access for construction, would be over the existing driveway. DEP had no comments on this. I'll turn it over to you.
Any?
Are there breakaway panels on that foundation?
Yes, so we provided a foundation plan and a proposed FEMA cert. There are breakaway panels on the foundation, and that lowest level is just dry storage only. There's no habitable space.
How high? Oh, yeah,
Yeah, so the
Okay.
first floor, all the habitable
Yeah.
space is at elevation 17.
yeah.
Floodplain is
Okay.
15.
There's nothing down there, no electrical, no.
Storage.
Yeah, and if it gets wet.
Well, it has an elevator going down.
No utilities. You're allowed an elevator into the
Yep.
storage area.
Right.
An elevator? Oh, okay.
Doug?
The existing side yard, Craig, is taken from the covered porch, and you're maintaining that.
Correct.
And I'm just curious only because I ran into something like this once, and that's an acceptable, they're considering that not increasing the nonconformity.
This does have a zoning board application pending.
Wow.
We're in front of them in the middle of March.
Okay. And then the power trench drain, how does that work?
In front of the garage, we've proposed a strip drain
Yeah,
that would drain along the side of the house and discharge at the back corner here, where it would flow into the harbor. Right now, the driveway and the catch basin immediately in front of the house actually run through an easement down the northern line and discharge into the harbor. So rather than tying the drain into the existing drain pipe, we decided to run a new drain pipe on the opposite side.
so is it a graded trench drain and it
It's just a-
catches the water?
It's just a 4-inch grate on the surface.
So what's the power involved in that? Does it have to?
That's just the name of the manufacturer.
Oh, okay.
There's no electrical requirement.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
There's where my curiosity was. It's like, it's just,
Yep.
yeah, okay, got it. I was picturing a giant sump pump. I was like, I'm just not buying that one. Okay, good. All right, thanks.
You're satisfied?
Yeah. yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to follow so is the existing driveway is concrete, what will the new driveway be?
Asphalt. So
Okay.
The driveway right in front of the site is asphalt currently. It would go back as asphalt. Here's a picture of the
Yes,
existing.
well, Jen, here's a.
Right, but, is part of
leave
it
that.
becoming, is part of the lawn leaving to
No,
make that, or no?
You're
They're
gonna
just
move this
moving the house
forward.
forward. The
Okay.
driveway will be
Leave that.
shorter.
Oh, yeah, I'm just
Right, so
following,
The
Yeah.
driveway does take up the width, so a portion of the lawn that you see on the right
Yeah.
side of the driveway there is lost to driveway. You'd have about a 5-foot strip of lawn on the right side. On the left side, you have about an 8-foot strip of lawn on the left side of the driveway.
okay.
I-
And how much bigger is this house than the current one?
Sure. The existing house, I have the total gross floor areas
In the
the
pictures.
application. Existing is at 1,800 square feet. Proposed square footage on this one is,
looks like it's almost double.
Existing is 1512, proposed is 2.5 stories, totaling 4,500 square feet.
So it's more than double?
But I'm talking on
With
the
the
ground,
second
it's
floor,
double.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the impervious went down even though you're adding to the driveway?
So right now, there's, if you look at the impervious calculations, the existing site is 3,095, the proposed is 2,934. Because we're taking the new house and we're pulling it forward on the site, so it's eliminating a portion of the
got it.
driveway.
Okay,
So that's the reduction.
okay.
Amy?
No.
Brenda?
I'm kind of thinking.
Amy?
Well, one of the comments I had sent over was just noting how they determined the coastal bank. So coastal banks shall be noted, or be determined by the DEP policy. So just was hoping that you guys could provide us information on that. We could even special condition that potentially.
Yeah, this is a fairly easy coastal bank because it's an extremely abrupt slope, as you see in that picture there. It's the top of that embankment. That was done in accordance with the DEP policy.
So maybe if we could just get it backup information for the
Certainly.
calculation, yeah. Yeah, it did not trigger the stormwater. It's not our purview on, like, whether or not Scituate, you can double the size of your house, like, that's not us. Yeah, so I don't, DEP had no comments, it's pending ZBA. I mean, I guess if they close, it would be at their own risk,
Yeah, the ZBA thing.
so.
Anybody in the audience? Greg, a couple of things. So back to Amy's piece with the top of Coastal Bank. So that concrete's all gonna be removed where that deck is now, is that correct?
Correct.
So is there plans to like rework some of this stone in front of here? How's that gonna work
So
out?
once the concrete comes out, I think there might be a need for some additional stones in that area.
Mhm.
You can't really tell till the foundation's out at that spot. But there might be a need to add some additional stones. We're not gonna rearrange the stones on the bank themselves, no.
Well, you're almost gonna have to do something, because you're gonna pull out all that concrete
Right.
to get that out of there. Either these stones are gonna, you have to either push them back towards the harbor, or they're gonna fall in there. But you're gonna have a void there when it's all done, and so I'm just wondering if there should be a detail showing some stonework, or how do we get to knowing what that would be?
Sure. Yeah, I could provide some additional detail on, the size stones and use a comparable size stone of what's out there, to fill in those voids.
Yeah, I mean, they're fairly good size. It looks like there's an old set of steps or something that's kind of half buried.
Like a ramp
Or-
or something?
Yeah, platform. And then, but then you're gonna remove all that foundation and pull that back, so you're gonna have a hole. If you just put in
Replace it.
fill, it's in a V zone. On the other hand, we don't really have any kind of revetment there, so just trying to figure out what would be the best course to take for that.
Yeah, I would think, boulders and crushed stone in that area would probably be the best way to fill that in.
So I would say you're gonna have to almost do that work
At
as soon as the
same
house
time.
comes down, and that, given where the access that you have on either side is pretty minimal.
Yeah, that would have to be done at that point.
I just think we should have some detail. And we-
Beef it up right there.
I think to Amy's point about the top of Coastal Bank, I know everybody's got a, it's kind of like a wetlands line a little bit. it's up to the interpretation of that, although there's a bunch of schematics. But it would probably be good to have the notes,
Sure.
how you guys came up with that.
Sure.
I can't think of anything. I think that's probably the more critical piece in that.
Yeah. Give me a second.
So given that we have to go to the ZBA in the middle of the month, if we could continue to the next Conservation Commission meeting, I can provide you with some detail and information on how we'll remove the foundation and what we'll replace that area with, and then I'll provide you with a cross-section per the DEP policy on the top of Coastal Bank. Is there anything else, or those two?
Well, if we could have additional progress on the foundation plans, it would be good. Because what we have is pretty rough,
Okay.
or preliminary, I guess, like the stamped structurals would be ideal.
Okay.
When's our next meeting?
March 16th. Okay, I make a motion, we continue 166 Jericho Road to March 16th at 6:20.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Do we want to, see,
You get that there.
Mr. DeLisi's here, do we want to jump back to Town Way?
The other one's
Those
right
are pennies.
next door, so it's kind of-
Yeah,
Okay.
that's another one.
I don't, so we're gonna do these together, 47 and 48 Town Way.
You guys are moving fast tonight.
Yeah,
Let's hope it continues.
don't jinx us, sir.
You want me to go?
Yeah.
We all set? All right. So Jeff DeLisi, I'm here with Greg Morse, our project engineer, as well as Stan Humphreys, our coastal geologist. Also behind me are various members of the Slocum family, who are the applicants
Greg, can you put
for
that
both
easel
these
up?
applications. Okay, so essentially, just to kind of refresh everybody's recollection, we were last here in mid-December, and this is kind of an interesting project. It's kind of a one-in-a-kind for me. Our clients own the house at 48 Townway Extension, which you're all familiar with as being the house that kind of is pushing towards the ocean, or the ocean is pushing towards it. Up on piles. That house is actually two cottages that are joined by a covered porch. Behind the house, or westerly of the house, is 47 Townway Extension on the opposite side of Townway Extension. The house is half buried in sand. There was a tremendous storm a few years ago, and since then it's been boarded up. And so the concept is our clients have entered into a purchase and sale agreement to buy the house at 47 Townway Extension. They would raise the house entirely and then drive piles at 47 Townway Extension. And then the proposal is to move or detach the eastern half of one of the two cottages at 48 Townway Extension and pick it up and place it on the piles driven at 47. The concept, we were before the ZBA back in October. The ZBA was very happy to hear this application, even though we're still leaving a portion of the structure. We're removing quite a bit of that structure, and we're removing a couple of dangers to the resource area, being the house at 47 and a portion of the house at 48. And so last we were here, you asked us a series of questions. It has taken us a while to get the answers to these questions. One of the things that we were tasked with doing was to go to the Board of Health, which we, at the time, had applications pending. We've now been to the Board of Health. The Board of Health hearing was February 10th. The Board of Health confirmed that they're not requiring a Title V test and that they're going to review the applications for an upgrade. They were supportive of this concept of a tight tank at 48, and Greg can explain, of the two properties, 48 is proposed to be a tight tank and 47 is proposed to be a Title V system, both environmental improvements over the existing condition. The board noted what we had already known, which is that there's a nearly identical tight tank to the property closest to the south, the house right next door, which this board and the Conservation Commission approved, I guess, a few years ago. They also indicated to us that their procedure, and this kind of varies, I think, from the way we've done things here in Scituate in the past, but the procedure is really that they will issue their approvals only after they receive conservation approval. That's what we're being told by the board. What have we done since our last hearing? Greg has undergone some diligence. He's located the existing system at 48 Townway Extension. He's filed a detailed narrative with the commission. He's filed some revised plans that include some specifics on the septic systems that are being proposed or the waste disposal being proposed, as well as the deck that is being proposed to be reconstructed at 48. And he's proposed a planting plan on 47 Townway Extension, which is about, I think, around 900 square feet of seagrass. Stan was brought in. Amy had a question or a concern about mean high water. Stan is here to talk about that. He's confirmed where the mean high water line is, and it can explain to you how he confirmed it. One of the interesting aspects of what we're doing is that right now there's a portion of a building that is located seaward of mean high water, and we will be removing all structures seaward of mean high water. Stan's also kind of spoken in his letter to the commission about the fact that there's not likely to be an adverse impact on the resource areas. And we also had Rivermore Engineering confirm the piling plans, confirm that they're removing all of the piles that are that will not be supporting a deck or a house at 48 Townway Extension. Additionally, they set forth a piling plan for both properties, and they've been out to assess the existing piles at 48 and have proposed some bracings and structural improvements to address those issues, which we've spoken with, at least has been articulated to me from Bob Vogel. We also have hired a company that will be moving the easternmost portion of this structure of 48 Townway Extension to the area at 47 where it will ultimately be. There is one minor change to the documents that were filed with you, and that is, it was initially when they were filed contemplated that the house would be lifted, moved, placed down for about an hour, and then picked back up and placed on the piles. I'm now being told that that will not happen. It will be one move, so the building will not actually have to be placed onto the earth again after it's picked up. So before I turn this over to Greg and the team, for questions. I just wanted to inform the commission that we were very careful to file these submittals timely in accordance with your deadlines and to give Amy sufficient time to review the materials prior to tonight's hearing. Our client has been at this for a while. We have purchase and sale agreement factors, and we're hoping that you have what's necessary before you tonight to be able to close the hearing. We would also like to get this underway prior to the Peggotty Beach season. So with that said, I'm happy to have Greg walk the commission through what he has done.
Just real quick, so structurals, we hadn't received any structurals. Were you gonna give those to us?
I have copies of them.
We didn't get them.
You didn't get structurals?
Nope.
Believe me, I would've looked at them.
Pile of things. So, familiarizing you with the plan again, number 48 Town Way is this property here, the Atlantic Ocean, in Peggotty Beach in this area. The existing house is located here, consisting essentially of 2 cottages that have been elevated up on piles and pushed together. We're taking the eastern half of number 48 and relocating that to the opposite side of the street, over here to where house number 47 exists. What will remain at the 48 site? You have copies of the structural plan showing locations of new pilings that are to be placed in the location of where that existing house portion was. There is proposed to be a deck constructed. That deck, you'll notice, is pulled back. It's pulled back 16 feet from the seaward face of where the building currently sits. By pulling it back 16 feet, it makes it so that the entire structure is above the mean high water mark. So the whole structure would be above mean high water. We've also proposed a tight tank. The tight tank, again, we have been to the Board of Health. The Board of Health asked us to confirm the location of the existing septic system out here, which we did. We dug up a precast leaching pit located at the front of the building, which therefore allows us to come in with a septic upgrade and get a tight tank permitted with the Board of Health. On the opposite side of the street here, house number 47, the existing house being here, that existing house, dilapidated due to a storm a couple of years ago, would be demolished, the debris removed from the site. New pilings are to be placed. The piling locations are depicted on our site plans here. A crane would be employed. We've provided a narrative from Winkler Construction and Crane Services, who'd be providing the crane service. The crane would come and set up and pick the half of house number 48 and be able to set it on top of those new pilings at house number 47. Also associated with that house move is construction of a new Title V compliant septic system, not a tight tank, at house number 47. We've permitted several other Title V systems on abutting properties along Townway Extension as well as Inner Harbor Road. This application is before the Board of Health as well. The Board of Health in both cases has asked that the Conservation Commission review and approve the project prior to their approval of the project. We'll go over any questions if you have them.
Penny?
I believe you said that somebody has looked at the pilings of the existing part of the house that is staying,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
and those pilings are all right. I mean, let's face it, you look there and you say, what's that thing doing standing? But those, you could supply us with something stating that they're secure, not the new, the old ones that you're leaving.
I've spoken with both Bob and Neil about this, and they're going to require that that building is, to their satisfaction, safe. And so to kind of, given that we've had questions from this commission about the pilings and where they're gonna be and what they're
Yeah.
gonna be and what's gonna stay and so forth. Rivermore Engineering was out there.
Yeah,
And I
it
think
said
the
that.
second sheet perhaps of the plan that you have, and I apologize, I thought that they were submitted, Penny.
We didn't get them, yeah.
Um,
This is just the deck plan.
So
Oh,
I believe that there's a second sheet that shows what they're gonna do with the bracings.
Okay,
This is for 48.
oh, this is,
The brace bay
It's for-
detail.
is the
Right,
house.
this part right here, it's gonna go on, here's the part.
I know, but I'm concerned about the pilings underneath the part
This piece that's
staying.
left.
Yes,
Okay.
that's what I'm concerned about. Okay, so you're gonna brace those, or?
Yeah.
You're gonna, I just,
Yeah, we have to.
it's a major
Yeah.
concern.
Jeff,
Absolutely.
this bracing is for the new house?
No.
There will be bracing for the existing house that is staying at 48, is my
The
understanding.
section that's
Yeah.
staying.
Yeah,
See, this is,
Yeah.
it gets
Yeah.
kinda confused.
yeah. But that's something that we're gonna have to address with the building commissioners, and they've
All right, I
specifically
just-
raised it to me.
Yeah, well, okay, I have another question.
Yep.
You have to take a crane out on the beach, over the dunes. That's a major, major concern. You know, it's gonna dig the beach up, it's gonna dig the area up. What? I mean, it has to be restored to how it is that day. I mean, I know,
So we also
if I
have.
was the neighbors, I'd say, what the heck is this doing down here?
Yeah, so we also have Mike Winkler, who's the head of the crane company, who we would be utilizing. They're out in Truro, they're sensitive to these types of issues, and was just asking them questions. Mike, are you here?
Yeah.
Mike, might be able to answer Penny's
Mat-
questions.
Matting that goes down or something, so it isn't, you're not digging up, I mean, that's a concern.
We're gonna be using crawler cranes, which are the least amount of ground pressure as far as the movement. And when we plan, you know, with the cranes, they're heavy,
Yeah,
so we don't want to, we plan our trip. We're not just driving down the beach like
Yeah.
with an excavator or a loader or something like that. You gotta think about where you're going and that sort of thing. So we, you know, make a direct trip,
a direct trip, pick up
pick up,
the front of the house that's going to be swung way back there, so then you have to move with that house?
we're gonna crawl with the house. It's a pick and carry crane.
Okay.
So we'd actually rig the house prior and then lift and then walk.
Because you're going up
Mhm.
over a dune again to get to 47, where it's gonna live.
Right, and so this, Mike, you might want to talk about what a crawler is versus, say, for instance, a car
Do you
or,
understand what
Yeah.
I'm talking about? Okay.
The ground pressure of the track, it spreads the weight over the whole.
A lot of the cranes you see have tires, but this one's
Yeah.
on tracks.
Okay, so it isn't gonna dig up as much?
It has lower ground pressure,
Yeah,
and that would be the thing to have on a beach.
okay. I'm just concerned about it
You'd end up
because we
sinking
want it.
in an inch rather than, you know, 2 feet.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Okay, because I know that will be a major concern.
absolutely.
It'll be fun to watch.
And not the least of which is no one wants to get stuck with a house in the air.
Oh, no, I would say, no. Okay, Doug?
Yeah, I think I'm stay home from work and watch.
Yeah?
No, my own concern was a mishap, like, if you drop the house.
You actually asked that at,
The
So-
last meeting, yeah.
Mr. Winkler is duly insured.
I'm sure you carry a lot of insurance.
We've done quite a few of these. And, we're very careful.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, no, I was just thinking if it was in the water and it busted up and then you got stuff
We've
in the
actually
water.
lifted houses out of the water that had gone in on their own.
Yeah.
Okay. No,
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
sure.
I guess that also kind of, say, in jest a little bit, but it is the point is at some point, whether it be now or at some point in the future, we're gonna need to do some kind of work out there to address the situation. And this type of work, I would think is probably, has a good chance of being better than the alternative, which is some kind of disaster. You know, out there.
Eventually, yeah.
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 Which would be imminent, yeah.
No, I'm good.
Thank you.
John?
How long, there's a lot, a lot in the emails, but how long do you feel like you would need to be on the beach, you know, prepping and then moving? The tide is pretty scheduled, but, you know, how long, is this like a week or is this 2 hours?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Between the prep is what takes the most time.
So,
So probably all told, between prepping and moving, you're gonna have, there's a lot of moving parts to this.
yeah,
So you first thing we do is demolish the 47
right,
and put the pile foundation in, so we're ready on that side.
yeah,
So that portion is probably 2 weeks.
oh, I'm more like, how long are you gonna be on the
The
beach?
move, yeah.
For the move,
Yeah.
the move itself,
Yeah.
probably a day.
So a day to do all of the prep work and to lift a house?
The prep work would be probably a week and a half prior.
But I think he's Mike, just explain, the prep work that you're referring to is probably the demo and the site clearing, the pile driving? Is that part of the prep work, or are you
No.
referring to something else?
The prep work for moving that portion of the house.
Okay,
We do that in place,
Mm-hmm,
and we'd actually use the existing pilings under it to stage off of. Probably wouldn't use a little bit of crane work, but not a huge amount, and that would not be from that area, it would be from up on the road and reach.
how many days would you expect the crane to be on site, Mike?
Probably a week and a half.
and then it looks like 10 new piles are going in. How many are coming out?
Not sure.
And then when they come out, are we like digging down to pull them out, or are we just cutting them off?
Yeah, it doesn't identify the number of existing piles there. Typically, you're removing them
But
You're
I don't
pulling them
know.
out?
by pulling them out. Is that the intention?
I believe, yeah, in fact,
He's saying yes.
Bill, is that the intention, to pull them out or to cut them?
You know, whatever, I often understood that conservation boards prefer there's less disruption if they're cut, but whichever one is preferred. Mike says he can pull them out.
We're not,
Machine
the depth of these, you know, I'm not sure how deep these go, right?
Right.
So, yeah,
Might go down. I don't know. To the center of the earth.
yeah, sure.
So that feels like a pretty big detail, I would think. No?
Because you're gonna put new ones in too.
Oh,
I'm getting
The
confused
old-
now.
The old piles, depending on how much resistance they had to pull them up, I think the point would be that if it's gonna take a lot of work to extract those piles, it may be better off to dig around them somewhat and then saw them off.
Right.
I can tell you that we did this back in '79 on Man Hill Beach, and we probably cut them off 6 feet below where the beach is, and they're now 6 feet above.
Oh, thanks.
So, you know, with erosion and time,
Mhm.
those piles eventually could resurface, but I don't think that that's a big deal in my mind. It's not
Yeah.
like we're leaving anything hazardous or whatever. It's,
I mean, we're
Oh.
not leaving any, you know, they will either be cut or removed. It's not as if they're just gonna be sticking out in the sand when we leave.
Right. Yeah, I just felt like a
No,
detail.
It's a very good question.
Just imagining kids like playing leapfrog on them or something. And then, how does this kind of accommodate for beach season?
Meaning?
It's coming,
Yeah.
and you want
Well,
to do a
as soon as
project
you
on the
close the
beach?
hearing, you know, we're prepared, we're prepared to move on this probably. The goal would be to be done by mid-June, okay?
Okay.
But there are various factors that are in the air right now, Jen.
Mm-hmm.
This process of permitting has now taken us, not your fault, has taken us quite a lengthy period of time. And we've run into some unforeseen obstacles that we had to maneuver. And right now, we're scheduled to purchase 47 Townway Extension mid to end of March. That would probably be pushed out, even if you close the hearing today, to give us some time to get past an appeal period. And once the appeal period is passed and we've bought the property, we're going to be moving.
Mm-hmm. It's just something that I don't know what the regulations are or the considerations.
We
for-
don't want to be out there with a crane in the middle of summer or even approaching the summer.
Right.
It would be unwise in many respects.
Yeah.
Many respects, yeah.
But you don't want to be out there with a crane in January either.
No. So good news
which
is
months are
January
left?
is passed.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's
Yeah,
the window of
absolutely.
opportunity
Yeah.
is difficult, and whether a lot of things play a factor.
Right, and for instance, your planning plan, I mean, I know of all the matters that we're dealing with in this particular project, talking about the planning plan, but the goal is to get that grass in the early spring as well. There's a certain time frame, so we're very sensitive to the beachgoers on this one,
Mhm.
and we're trying to move as quickly as possible. It's the best I can say.
I'm good for now.
Andy?
No, I think if I have questions, it's somewhat, has been referenced to what we've allowed out there already, but I'll wait until hold my question, and see if it's coming in a moment.
Yeah, well, we can circle back, you don't get more than one shot at it. David?
I'm good for now.
Amy?
Yeah, so we've had one hearing on this project so far. So that was our opening hearing in which we generated quite a few questions. I just actually took a look at my notes from that hearing date, and it does look like, you know, we've received a lot of what we asked for. But coming back around to the project itself, and it's a pretty complicated project with a lot of moving pieces, right? So, you know, DEP didn't have any particular comments for us on this one. The applicable performance standard would be for coastal dune, you know, and I think that for these single-family homes, that septic systems are something that we can allow. I guess it's just, you know, how are we gonna allow the project without altering the dune? And if there is altering, how do we assure that it's restored back to the way it was? I know that there's been constant challenges on the front property as it is, with respect to, I mean, maintenance and access and moving the sand around, which is reflected in the notes for this file. One of the things that we had thrown out before we received this additional information was, I think Frank brought this up, was whether this would be a good site to roll in a expert on, just to make sure that we are not missing anything, since it's so complicated. So I'd still throw that out there as to whether we want to put that out to a some kind of a coastal specialist on projects like this. Jen had a bunch of great points. Thanks for the information. I don't know, thanks for the structurals, so that's good, to get them today so we can take a look at these. I don't know, Frank, turn it back
Is
to
there
you.
anybody else in the audience that wants to speak to this first? So I've got a list of questions. So the access to this project, is that gonna come off of Gilson Road, or is it coming from the Peggy Beach parking lot? to get to this site? Are you gonna
Right.
mobilize from town, from Gilson and Town Way?
Mhm. Right.
So you're,
Correct.
right, so at least you're not in the town beach parking area. You're coming from the side that's
Yeah,
not
you're
utilized
not
as
going over that.
frequently. Is there erosion control or an extent of work on this? Like, I don't even know how you put erosion control on the, so how do we?
No, you're not excavating soil.
Well, there's gonna be the demolition of an existing building. Somehow I wanna make sure that we're contained in the area where you're supposed to be working. I'm not sure that there's much vegetation out there to damage right now at all, but, so how do you stay within the limit of work?
So we'll certainly be going out to stake out property lines and setbacks, especially with the, the installation of new pilings. So we could stake out all the lot corners, and those could be established as our limit of work.
And you're moving around a bunch of, a job site, there's equipment, there might be a lull, I don't know what they're gonna use to do all this sort of thing, an excavator. We wanna make sure that the work is pretty much kept to this site, I would imagine.
Mhm.
Normally, there'd be some silt sock or silt fence or some other thing, so I wonder if it should be greater than just some lot corners or something like that. Trying to figure out a way to,
I mean, we could do like snow fences, something to that effect. You talk about like physically just making sure. I guess the only concern with that is depending on movement, right? Because we're kind of, you got the road there as well, so.
I mean, the westerly site seems like it's a little bit easier to define. The easterly site
Yes,
is in the water, so
yeah.
I would think it would be fairly easy to fence in
Mhm.
one of them, unless you have an agreement with a neighbor or something to work beyond that, and then that ought to be
Mhm.
fenced in. But you have debris and demolition and
Mhm.
trash from job sites and stuff, so
Yeah,
I think
right.
the snow fence might be the best piece.
Yeah.
A little confused with the plan. This structural plan that we have here says number 48 Townway Extension, but I think it's the plan for 47.
Where on the plan are you talking about, Frank?
If you look at the project title, Slocum Residence
Oh.
Deck, right?
So the deck is 48.
Well, if you look at the plan, Jeff, this to me looks like a plan for 47.
Well, it's currently on 48. It's going to be 47.
Yep. And it's the same.
48, yep.
So,
This plan,
Frank,
this plan that I have that says 48, right?
yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
But isn't this the foundation plan that's gonna be at 47?
no,
These are the pilings under the proposed deck and the bracing associated with the existing
The
house.
house that's there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we have a plan for 47?
no.
Underneath, yeah.
Yep,
So we don't have a plan for 47 at all?
that's correct.
So I was incorrect.
You're fired.
You win again, Frank.
Well, that was half to it. The time frame we talked about, and I get that, I mean, I don't know how you work out all of it, just, the good news is that you're not coming from Peggy Beach parking lot where there's apt to be more beachgoers, you're sort of on the quieter end of this. And
Yeah, a lot of it is seasonal out there, so the goal is to try to get the bulk of this done, prior to them, prior to people start coming in and populating.
The old piles or things like that, I think you do the best you can with them. Obviously, the concern, sounds like you've got someone on board that's done enough of this to be able to deal with the older houses and knows the issues. And I appreciate him being here tonight.
Yep.
I think, we did talk early in the game about asking if there was someone else that wanted to review this. I kind of don't, I mean, we've been a while at this. I'd hate at this stage.
Well,
in
we've
the-
had one hearing, and then they've just given us all this new information. So we haven't, as Jeff said, they were stalled doing other things, not addressing our comments. So we finally did get, a good package of information in, last week, actually, I believe, or the week before, or something like that, recently.
I'm
Which is
just-
good, so we're
yeah,
making progress,
yeah.
but
But at the same time, we're trying, if the goal is to try to move this thing before, I mean, not that that should be our only concern,
No.
to move it along.
yeah. Well, I have written down environmental monitor as a possibility to assure that the project stays on track, as something to consider.
Like a consultant to watch the project?
Yeah. I
On
mean,
behalf
I'm
of the
really
commission?
concerned about the altering of the
Yeah.
dune and possible damage to the resource area, and how do we protect the resource area? I mean, even just having the equipment on the beach, equipment is prone for hydraulic releases. I mean, we've seen that at some of our other construction sites recently, where they've had numerous lines blow, and now you've got oil on the beach. So we want to make sure their BMPs are in check.
So are those things we
Yeah.
can put in the conditions, Amy?
I think so.
So if those are in the conditions, and there's a person that's gonna oversee this at various times, I mean, if there was a person that's familiar, similar to Stan, that looked at the, or if Stan's on their team doing this, to look at the beach and that area and determine that it was restored in as good a fashion as it could be, because it could wind up being altered.
Right, well, and again, when is the last time you guys have been out there? Should we schedule a site visit? Because I'm just saying that the road depicted on the plan is not what it looks like in the field.
Right.
Oh,
But
There is no road.
it's not there.
So,
Long gone.
I mean, we might want to establish routes of entry and exit before we wrap this up, you know what I mean?
So
And
I
also
guess-
get the structural plans for the other site that we don't even have.
I'm just wondering, should that be on them with their consultant to report back on the project, as opposed to another person? I mean, I know when we have restoration and things like that, typically, we might have a review, but typically the planting plan and all that sort of stuff is done by the applicant's consultant, right?
Right, but when we have a complicated project, though, it would be, one way would be to get an independent environmental monitor, so it's the eyes of the commission, not of the applicant, doing the work. So you have an independent person out there looking at what's going on, and just verifying that it stays on course.
Well, it also, I think, perhaps might make some of these other questions less intensive, because we're not trying to be like, what happens if the house dips an inch? It's like, well, there's somebody there to kind of like make some recommendations and keep the commission informed.
So I think that you guys, you make very valid, very good points and fair points. I think that the commission has a lot of experience with Stan. He's before the commission often, and I would think that he'd be the perfect guy to do that, and we're happy to have that to be the case, have it be a condition of approval, that Stan reports progress, or I'm just not sure what you're gonna get out of a separate expert. And in one respects, it's a complicated project because you're removing that portion of the house and moving it. In another respect, there's nothing complicated about the rest of it at all. Like, you guys, this is something that I think, you see often, these raise and reconstructs. So, and there's not much in the way of land to work with here. So that's the other issue, but,
But we don't very often have a crane on the beach.
mhm.
That's the big thing. We're bringing a big piece of equipment onto a public beach.
When we have, we have large projects like Toll Brothers or Herringbrook Meadows or
Yeah.
whatever, and in those cases, we have an engineer or some sort of consultant that reviews it for the town.
Yeah, we have
We do,
one
but
going on
but
right now.
when we're doing individual homes
Yeah.
or smaller areas, we pretty much rely on the consultant, and then we go out and take a look at it. I hear what Amy's saying, we certainly want to be sure that it's reconstructed and done safely, and I think, I really don't care whether the house dips or not, I mean, that's their problem and their contractor's problem and the owner's, it has
Yeah.
very little bearing on
We
us.
just want to protect.
But, there's topography that's been done by Morse, and maybe we need to have something that when it's all done, similar to what we get for a site, that we have some sort of letter
An
or
as-built,
as-built
an
that's
as-
saying
yeah.
that things were restored.
Right.
I mean, there's other agencies in the town that, the building department's gonna wanna know certain things, the resistance of the piles and all that sort of stuff. I'm sure somebody's gotta get back to them with that. I'm assuming you're gonna have somebody on site, or the structural engineer is gonna have somebody to say that the piles are in place okay, or,
Yeah, we'll be staking them out as far as locations and, setbacks, and then, yeah, there'll be a geotechnical engineer from the structural engineering company that will, monitor blow counts and everything for resistance.
right, so that sort of stuff is already in place, so it's more keeping an eye, the concern if there's a problem with, a mechanical problem, if there's a leak or oil or something like that, but, I mean, it happens in various areas, and that's supposed to be.
Well,
I think there's going to be so
I
many eyes
just, I don't,
out there.
I realize it's on the beach and it's a tricky project, but I don't want to overburden the applicant with it either. I mean,
Yeah.
I was sort of skeptical at first of this whole process of dividing the house and putting half of it still not in a great place, but they're allowed to do that. So we just want to make sure that the next pieces that come together are okay, and I think, we have a pre-construction, if we're in a site with wetlands or whatever, we have a pre-construction, they get a DEP number. Before the job starts, you have the opportunity to have a pre-construction meeting with the contractor and the engineers and who's ever involved, and they're gonna tell you what they're gonna do. And if it changes, or you get updates from them, letters or whatever, if there's a storm, things are gonna change. I don't,
I think if we were to learn some lessons from other projects, even though this is just a single family, well, two single family homes, we get a lot of feedback from the community, and by having somebody who's monitoring it on site, it removes a lot of the burden and concern from the office. And if somebody says, calls into the office with a concern about a tractor on the beach or something, Amy and Jen can easily they know who to reach out to. They don't have to potentially go all the way down and shut down a job site. It's a way of, hopefully, in my mind, decreasing a lot of slow down risk and concern. Problems can be solved on the fly as opposed to stopping work.
there's no doubt in cases, we have that now with, like we talked about, with the larger jobs.
Yeah.
And they're only there part-time, and I think it's an unrealistic burden to put someone on and say, you're gonna have to have a person on this job 8 hours a day, 5 days a week while the job goes on. I mean, you don't put that kind of oversight on
Yeah.
on a big job.
Right, I don't think that's necessarily, I'm sure that there's times that the building mover, I'm sorry, I can't remember your name. the informative man in the corner, could be like, you should really be here between 8 and 4 today. Don't worry about tomorrow. I've got to believe that there's a plan in place that can strategically spend time for a third party to monitor, an independent third party to monitor.
I hear
I'm
what you're
nervous.
saying, I don't disagree with you, but this particular project, I think, is going to draw many people down there the day the crane is on the beach to watch. There's gonna be a lot of eyes down there.
But it's,
It's only for, the crane will actually be on the beach how many days, sir?
The crane will never be left on the beach.
No, but it will be on the beach.
The actual move, the
Yeah.
actual move isn't gonna take more than a day.
but
And
this job could go on for 6 weeks. I mean, they're gonna go out, they're gonna demolish a building,
yeah,
they're gonna have to clean that up, they gotta drive piles for that building. There is this travel back and forth, we should know the limit of work, we should know where they can travel on. All that sort of stuff should be there, and to Jen's concern, you know, we don't want someone driving haphazardly around, but we usually lay that stuff out in advance.
yeah, well, I don't see why.
Then I think we identify that stuff as stuff that we're still looking for. Because the construction sequence details are a little bit lax. We could, you know what I mean? Like, we don't have it buttoned down on how they're getting to and from, where they're storing their equipment, the BMPs that they're gonna be using, things like that. We don't have the structurals for the other site. It's probably, if we get that information, maybe we could close it up at the next one. And maybe by then too, they'll make more progress with the Board of Health. Yeah.
Well, let's decide, if we're gonna continue this, let's decide what's left that we wanna have them do. If there's someone that we want to have go out and look at this site, do we wanna tell them that and get it done?
Well, I'm feeling
Yeah,
like
I
you
don't wanna, in
that.
2 more meetings, I don't wanna say we wanna now hire a consultant. Stan?
I think if you may recall, we had a raise and rebuild over 3 Driftway involved the coastal bank. And there was a lot of concern about the steps that were being taken, the material that were gonna be brought in, slopes, everything else.
Yes,
And that's when I took on the responsibility of doing monitoring reports. And I think there were probably 4 or 5 that I issued, that I provided with photographs.
Yep, that was with, Shepherd was the contractor.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
I mean, and an advantage in this case is that I live in town.
yeah.
So I can get over there pretty quickly, in minimal time impact. But those details could be worked out in condition, I think, or conditions,
Mhm.
number of reports. Just, try and stay in touch with the schedule, know when it's moving along, inform you. I think the advantage in that particular case, correct me if I'm wrong, Amy, but you didn't have to go running around and go over there and put that on your schedule to stop by. You could call me with a problem, or, I had, the photos given to me. So, anyway, and I think it would be a whole different matter if we had a distinct primary frontal dune that was highly vegetated with beach grass and shrubs, and they were trying to do this project. It's been so altered out there from one year to the next, with 47 losing the sand to 48 losing the sand to 47, having it bulldozed back to 48. There really is no vegetation to speak of at this point. I think that's a good mitigation that they're going to be imposing in the project, 900 square feet. But, yeah, the pre and post survey, I think, is going to tell you a lot, too, about the conditions of the topography.
Who owns the lot next to 47? There's a blank
Southerly?
lot there. There's
South?
yes, south.
Oh, next to
Moran.
47 or 48? On the beach or,
No, on the road. On
You know, on your plan?
The other side. This one.
This one right here,
The vacant one?
this
Right
one
here.
here's town of Scituate.
This is town Scituate?
This is town of Scituate, yeah, on the southerly side.
Instead of coming all the way down.
It has to come in off the end of Town Way, off of Gilson Road.
What are you trying to
No,
figure out?
I'm just trying to find a quick way in with that crane.
Oh,
This is town-owned land, right
Right.
next door. So,
Well, they have a, there's almost
But
like
he
a
says-
back, there's
yeah.
almost like a back driveway to this now anyways, isn't there? There's,
I'm not sure the crane's
Is-
like the big issue.
no, it isn't.
Yeah.
It isn't. There's a whole process that's
Yeah.
gonna happen with this job. The day that they move that house is just,
It's like
The-
one.
yeah, it's gonna be accountable.
Yeah, I don't know, the way this town is pretty fast and furious with the projects, I would much rather see the details recommended, I mean, buttoned up on the front end here, rather than condition them and have the information then come to the office as a special condition. It would be much better to get it in, so you guys can look at it
there is,
before we seal it.
there's already, in this thing here, there's already some sequence and stuff like that, but we could ask for some additional detail, get the plan, fill that in. I agree with you.
For,
You know, to have specific dates is hard to do because
yeah, not
it's weather
dates.
dependent and all that sort of stuff, but certainly they could have a sequence. I think there's two things. Are we comfortable with everything that they've put here in terms of resource areas and regulatory pieces? It's gone to DEP, we've looked at it.
So
Do we
that,
wanna- do we
that
want another-
one, I think the answer is yes. I think that Stan provided us with all the information that we were looking for resource areas. Morse also provided us the detail in the narrative, which had been lacking, so we now have an understanding of what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
But so, it's just, it's in the detail is I think what we're maybe missing a little bit of, and that in the structural plans.
Yep.
I mean, there are certain things that we will definitely condition, like the spoils from the septic for the front property. We want to make sure that those go off-site, you know what I mean? And that they're not using material from the beach to cover the septic system, that's going to be in the future, you know, because it's going to keep washing away, but we don't want them to keep mounding up the dune from the beach.
I don't think Sherlock Holmes is gonna find that septic system, but.
No, they found it.
You defied
Greg,
us.
you found it, right?
Yeah, we found it.
Yeah.
Number 48, we found
And
it.
it's still there, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's gonna get removed.
It's pumped, crushed, and filled.
Yeah. All right.
Crushed and filled, yeah.
That's what it says on the plan, yeah. In accordance with Title V.
Yeah, if there's anything left there to pump, whatever,
We'd be pumping sand out of it.
Yeah.
We're just gonna leave the
Yeah.
sand in place, essentially.
Just leave it.
yeah.
Hooked up to it, unhook it.
And the piles, I think, I don't know, we want to see are the structurals for the other house in progress?
I thought that you had them, so, I don't know, Bill.
Then you should have had them for the last meeting, actually.
Yeah, so I
Well, they're somewhere, but we don't have them.
suppose the answer is yes.
So what if we do this? What if we continue this to the next meeting? And we're gonna get more detail on all this, and we can either decide at that meeting that we want a condition that we have a third party to oversee it. In the meantime, we can discuss
Think
this or
about it, yeah.
have this discussion and figure out the way that's gonna go. And it's either
Yeah.
gonna be, we don't wanna, at the next meeting, debate whether to do that and continue it again. We could either make that part of the orders or give them direction on how we want them to do it.
Right, I mean, and there's different ways, I mean, we could take a guaranteed deposit account, we could get an independent monitor, we could have them hire Stan and have him report to us like they did on Driftway, we could do a little bit of both, so that way we're definitely covered.
Yep.
We could require that they give us an as-built within a short order from completing the project.
All right, we got a few more
I mean-
hearings. I think we've decided we can do all that. You guys know what we need to close.
So it's just, I suppose, the only question I have, because sometimes it's a moving target when I get out of these meetings, I'm trying to make the to-do list, is the sequencing detail, that's what I'm not sure exactly what you guys are looking for.
So I think that, come up with some sort of, put in the plan whether it's gonna be a snow fence or, you know, you wanna do that sort of thing. I think a little bit more defined sequencing. I mean, I saw something in here that's pretty brief.
It is, but there's gonna be a lot of challenges, you know, as the project gets closer and as different, you know, weather and so forth that's what pre-construction meetings are about.
Yep. So why don't you try to tighten it up a little bit, Jeff? Fill it in
Okay.
a little bit.
Right, like I don't think the project should be done in the window of time where we have the king tides, for instance. You know what I
Agreed.
mean, like, let's try to not do it in that window, so maybe we wanna do some kind of work restriction regarding tides, since they're in the tidal zone.
Okay.
But so a little more thought needs to go into this, but if you could, as the applicant, provide us more detail on how you think you can cleanly execute this project without headaches to the office, that would be great, without altering the dune further.
I mean, the sequence, with the one that I'm looking at here is basically 11 steps. And, you know, it's disconnecting the water, I think you could fill this in. So,
Okay.
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
For this, I'm gonna call it the beach house. I guess they're all on the beach, but the one that's getting the new deck, is there a version of the structurals that includes the existing piers? Like, that might be helpful, because this is just new. Then we would know, it might be a way for us to see, like, which one's staying.
We can get that for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if that's not clear, Jeff, we need complete structurals on both projects.
Yes, I understand.
Maybe some information on just daily BMPs for the equipment.
I mean, I think you could fill in some more of this, Jeff, like, you know, are they planning to put a roll-off on site and fill it? Are they gonna haul stuff out with a dump truck? I mean, it's a tricky site, so we don't wanna be making this stuff up the day of the.
Got it.
And just question, because I thought Joan still had some outstanding things on the septic. Are those all, she's good, she's just waiting for us to sign off?
That's how I understood it, based on the Board of Health meeting.
The Board of Health had a meeting. Joan provided, the plans were resubmitted right after the meeting. Joan provided comments. Greg responded to those comments, and it appeared, based on the comments and the responses, that there really wasn't much left.
How'd that table get turned? We usually let it be everybody else has to do it first, and we're last.
It's very confusing for the applicant.
Yeah, I understand.
The regulation, the 310 CMR 10, whatever, 1005, I think it is, requires that your application be the last, but it doesn't say anything about the process of approving. So it just indicates who files last.
Gotcha.
I have run into this on another project where you guys and Board of Health are both saying that, you know, we're waiting for the other, and it burned a little time reconciling it, so.
Well, we got 3 more hearings.
Yep,
so-
very good. Thank you.
Okay, I make a motion, 4748 Townway, extension to March 16th at 6:20.
Second, all in favor?
Hi.
Thank you very much.
148 Jericho Road.
Yes.
On March 2nd, 2020, at 6:30 PM, the Town Hall, Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws, and Section 30700 Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Jane and Katrina Enzeletto to raise and rebuild a dwelling located at 148 Jericho Road, Analetto. 148 Jericho Road, Scituate, abutters and other interested parties are invited to.
Jericho Road.
Good evening, Gregory Morris, representing the applicant Jane and Katrina Analetto. This is a notice of intent associated with a raise and rebuild for a single-family home located at 148 Jericho Road. Referring you to the plan, Jericho Road is at the top of the page. Property lines are shown in black. Property consists of 7,762 square feet of land. Scituate Harbor is to the south along the southern boundary line. Property was previously developed with a single-family home constructed in 1972, located here. There's an existing asphalt driveway out to Jericho Road, existing water, sewer, gas, and electrical service out to Jericho Road. The land is located within land subject to coastal storm flowage, the FEMA floodplain. Floodplain is at elevation 15 for the front 3/4 of the site, and then the back along Scituate Harbor is in a velocity zone at elevation 16. Similar to the other Jericho Road site, there's a very well-defined coastal bank which runs along the top of some rocks along Scituate Harbor. I've highlighted in blue the top of the coastal bank. Extending off of that in red is the 50-foot buffer, and in green the 100-foot buffer zone. The proposal here is to take down, demolish the existing house, and construct a new house. The new house is shown in this outline here. The new house is 22 feet from the top of the coastal bank, while the existing house is at 15 feet from the coastal bank. The new house is located entirely outside of the velocity zone. It's located in land subject to coastal storm flowage at elevation 15. We have the first floor proposed at elevation 17. So it proposes 2 feet of freeboard, 1 foot is the requirement. The foundation, we provided a foundation layout. It is equipped with flood vents in accordance with the regulations. There's an erosion control barrier along the back of the site, along Scituate Harbor, and along the sides of the new house. In the front of the house, the driveway that's there would remain, the lawn area in front of the house would remain, and all the utility services would remain in their current condition. DEP had no comments.
Eddie?
Another big house. No.
Greg, there's the picture, look at the picture, shows basically stones riprap down the slope. Is there, is that on the Scituate Harbor side?
That's
Yeah.
on Scituate Harbor, yes.
Oh, okay. And that, there's a deck, is that, it looks like it's part of the existing deck, is that,
So there's a,
is that going away?
there's an existing patio
Yep,
out back. The patio stays. There's a proposed deck off the back of the house. The proposed deck is on sonotubes.
so that, the existing one's being removed then?
This here,
Yeah.
no, we're not touching it. We're leaving it.
I'm trying to see it.
Yeah, it's hard. If you look at this picture,
Which one?
see,
I guess I have trouble seeing the deck. Is it at
Yeah,
ground level?
It's right at ground level.
Oh, that's
It's right
why,
on the
okay.
water surface.
I'm trying to look up and see a deck, it's not there.
No,
at
it's not an
ground level.
elevated
Oh,
deck.
okay.
It's right on the ground.
It's kind of
surface.
nothing.
Is that staying too?
It's right
Well,
on
I
the
mean-
ground surface.
I didn't mean that as a,
yeah, but it looks like it's.
I don't have any better pictures of it.
well, that's this
Yeah.
patio here. I'm looking for this little piece of deck that's right down in
Oh.
front of it,
Oh,
that's at ground level. I thought, I was expecting to see
Yeah.
something.
that's what, never mind.
A bandstand.
Oh, what kind of
You were imagining
understand?
that?
I was,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because it's my pants.
Holy smolies. That's, yeah. Do you have any more questions, Doug?
No, I'm good.
Jen?
Okay. I wasn't totally following. Are you removing any of the existing patio? Or is the new deck just going above it?
No, so we're leaving that existing patio
Okay.
in place because that kind of stabilizes the
Yeah.
backyard, like in the other side where we're removing.
Right.
So that stays.
And the sonotubes are just going into, or, oh, it's around it. Okay. Do we have the sonotube? Like is there a plan
Yeah.
with that?
There's a,
Oh, okay, got
yeah,
it.
we gave you a preliminary foundation plan there.
foundation.
Not, but where are the sonotubes for the,
They're, under the deck, I believe, are tubes.
right, I just don't, I'm not sure I'm seeing that.
This portion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man, I have so many comments tonight. This is what happens when nobody talks to me during the day.
Somebody called Jen before the
I know.
next meeting.
Okay.
I'm sure Greg will call me.
Andy?
No, I think, so the structures are not moving back from the water, but the enclosed house is essentially the summary.
Correct. The house is being pulled closer to Jericho Road. So the house comes back, it's about 7 feet.
Did you get it?
So my comments are pretty consistent with the last one for coastal bank
Yeah.
determination. And Greg, if you could just give us the information in accordance with that coastal bank policy for
Sure.
the delineation. I mean, it looks pretty evident based on the slope out there. I don't know, I don't really have any other comments. DEP didn't have any comments on this.
Anybody in the audience? I got a couple. Again, it was the same piece, the top of coastal bank, and then what do you plan to do with the boulders? So the front, it seems similar to the other one.
So on this case here, right behind the top of coastal bank is an existing concrete patio surface and an existing wooden deck that's at grade. And we're leaving those in place, so we're not disturbing the earth anywhere immediate vicinity of that top of coastal bank.
Greg, one that concerns me with this one, and just seeing things happen with the storm before, oftentimes what happens is the water overtops the seawall along Oceanside Drive and Turner Road, and then it fills the area in back, and then that water winds up running out, and so instead of dealing with wave action from the harbor, what happened to a lot of these houses after the blizzard of '78 and a couple other storms is everything emptying out into the harbor from that whole Sandhills area actually wound up undermining these houses, and they collapsed as water eroded around the foundation. So now, the last house, 166, I think was basically the same width as the house was before. Didn't change much. This house looks like it's getting wider than the other house, so that's gonna impede that water. Am I wrong?
No, it is wider. The existing house width is about 35 feet in width. The proposed is 48.
So,
15.
I'm not sure exactly where this is. I mean, I'm looking at the topo and whatnot, but I know that that was a problem in that area. It's sort of the low area in Jericho, and that's what happened to those places. It just, the water just rushing to get out of that area. You know, it's coming over the seawall, and everything slopes down to that area. So all the water that winds up in the avenues and all that winds up coming down to Scituate Harbor. And, you know, I know that they did some drainage work and things to take care of the water to try to get it to come down faster, but it does concern me that we're closing up this area. These aren't piles, these where water can flow through. These are poured foundations.
Correct. Yeah, it's a poured foundation with flood vents on it. But I do understand the concern. I know they have done that drainage work out there. You know, 166 Jericho has the town's easement actually for the drainage pipe on that property.
Right. But this is so much water that pipes don't even matter. I
Yeah.
mean,
This one, I mean, there's 8 feet to either side lot line. It does comply with the side yard setbacks. I can take a look a little bit more at some of the flowage that you're talking about, but I don't have an answer as far as.
I don't even know how you figure that. I mean, it's just sort of, it's kind of like the compensatory storage in a flood area. I mean, we're talking about a huge sum of water, but I know that that's what happened to some of these houses, is that it was so much water that it started to, the amount of water flowing that was restricted between the houses wound up scouring that out to a point where it went below their footings and the houses actually toppled.
Is it a full basement?
It's again, it's just storage space in the lower level. But I mean, the building is up, first floor is at elevation 17, I think the ground surface is elevation 8 or 9, so it's full height in
Yeah.
that lower level, yeah.
I mean, I suppose you could do a portion of that where.
They were on piles on either
that-
side.
That 8 feet, well, or you could do knockout vents on that.
So the amount of water that was, you know, in these really bad storm events is phenomenal.
Yeah.
It just, you know, we have a little bit higher seawall further up on Oceanside, which has helped some of the flooding in some of the avenues. But if you think about how that runs, it's just essentially there's a big dip between Oceanside and Hadley Road. So when the storms
Yeah.
go in and they overtop that, all that water winds up there, and it drains into the harbor.
It eventually
Right.
comes this
Um,
way, south.
And that was a problem. People couldn't get off of, off of Lighthouse Point and all that because the water was racing through there so bad. I mean, hopefully people are out, and that's not the problem. But in this case, you're widening up a house considerably.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you could structurally do something different.
If the wings were on piers or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, maybe we don't have jurisdiction over that, I don't know. But, you know, we talk about it in terms of restricting flow and things in other cases, and
It's almost like this whole area could be in
Visa?
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
in a major storm.
I mean, the action on these houses is so varied.
Oh, absolutely, year to year, it's a tremendous difference.
Yeah.
I'm certainly willing to look into that.
In fact, I think the Analettos, one of the Analetto families lost their house because the house literally tipped over.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you expecting a big storm soon? I hope not.
100-year storms seem to happen a little more frequently.
I know, no, and we've had such a quiet winter this year.
Yeah. But I mean, everything, whatever we look at,
Eventually
it's,
coming.
all right, well, I want to give that,
So do
I
we
don't know,
continue?
I hear you.
think about that.
All right.
Remind them of what happened to their own house, maybe they'll think about it.
I-
Or one of their family members.
I will, I'll certainly look into that comment. And similar to 166, I mean, if we want to continue this for 2 weeks, I can get you the DEP policy, information on the coastal bank, and I'll
Yeah.
look into some of these other issues as well.
Just bring that to their attention. I mean, they may want to think about
Yeah, they
these
forgot
houses and what could happen there. All right?
All set, I make a motion to continue 148 Jericho Road to March 16th at 6:20.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
50 Crescent Ave.
That's what you get for not doing the notebook last week.
On, on March 2nd, 2020, during the 6:15 meeting of Town Hall, Scituate Conservation Commission will act on the request of Chuck Pollard for determination of applicability of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act of the Scituate Wetlands Bylaws to repair an existing retaining wall on property located at 50 Crescent Ave, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Good evening.
Good evening.
Let me give those green cards to Jen.
Oh, but this is a,
Oh, yes, not,
You'll see what
this is
he
just the, it's the,
oh, okay,
wants. He just wants to.
thank you.
I'm Chuck Pollard, one of the homeowners at 50 Crescent Avenue. I'm hoping this is going to be easier than a couple of things you've been listening to. My first time before the Conservation Commission, that's quite a process. This is pretty straightforward. This is a repair project on an existing retaining wall that is on the east border of our property. It's part of the property that borders Second Cliff. The wall, I think, is probably goes back 40 years or so. The current wall was rebuilt in 1996 with landscape timber. It's 24 years old today. It has started to rot, and during some of the rain we got in October, November, it started to collapse. So I need to do a repair project, which essentially involves pulling out the old timber, removing a lot of the plantings in the garden along there, putting them in a temporary spot, putting new timber in, holding it down with rebar
You should
pins,
look at the pictures and show them to Frank.
Oh, sweet.
backfilling,
Yeah.
replanting, fairly straightforward.
It's,
It's no change to existing dimensions, same materials that are there now, that have been there for 24 years. Would like to get it done soon so that it can be done ahead of the spring, normal spring landscape timeframe.
my only concern on it, I think it's a good idea, is you have to be careful going toward, away from your house, away from that you don't have much room there to work in.
Right.
And you try not to disturb what's, the growth is there.
The growth, for us, the growth is what stabilizes the cliff. So
It does. You don't want to lose that, because then you don't have that far from your house.
Yep, exactly.
So you want to be very, very careful.
One of the objectives by doing it early in the spring is to
Same
leave the
project?
growing season
Yes.
to allow that vegetation to come back quickly. I think we'll probably need maybe a foot, foot and a half
But like the old-
along
that's
that
like-
edge for, it's all gonna be done by hand, there'll be no equipment in there.
Yeah.
But still, there'll be some foot impact, and I think that will regrow very quickly in the April, May timeframe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doug?
No, I don't have any.
Ken?
Are you doing the work?
No, there's a crew coming in, a landscape crew.
Oh, bummer.
Right, you want to go help?
I love a good gardening project.
Yeah.
Andy?
I'm good.
Yeah, so it definitely needs to be
I don't think it
done.
really has anything to do with
Pretty
this
straightforward.
No,
Picture
it
of the
was-
property.
It was planned.
You meet the requirements of a -3
Yeah.
determination,
Yeah.
which is good. Yeah.
Anybody in the audience for this one? So, in full disclosure, I did quite a bit of work for the house next to this house
Yes.
years ago, and we filed for them, and I worked with Mr. Pollard on a bunch of those, so I'm pretty familiar with this, and I've seen the wall, and I know what it looked like 10 years ago, so I'm not surprised that it's in need of
Time to
of work.
replace.
And I think, Penny's cautions are good. It's just, it's a steep bank. No one's got more at stake there than you with your own house.
Yeah.
So,
It's your house going in.
making sure that people know what they're doing with this stuff. It's,
We had about 30 feet of a collapse in that October, November wet period, and
Oh, yeah.
one of the consequences of that is that it's built with a swale that prevents any runoff going over the cliff.
Oh.
But where it collapsed now, that swale is starting to flatten out, and I think if we don't get to it quickly, we could start seeing some runoff. I want to get that taken care of.
do you notice any difference, like, since they sewered the cliff? Do you think there's any less water?
It seems to be drier than it was. That was
Kinda,
'06 when
right.
we were involved. And there seemed to be more kind of underground water coming out the side of the cliff in those days. I don't see that today.
So with that glacial till, they call that like perched water tables, so there's water tables at different levels. I mean, you're up high on a cliff, you wouldn't think there'd be a water table there at all, but, you wind up, it's just so hard. And so there's all these different levels where water seeps out. And if we get enough, when there's been failure, it's typically been during the big rain events where enough water softens that and then it breaks out.
Exactly.
But I was kind of thinking that when they sewered it and took away some of the discharge, people's septic systems aren't soaking into the cliff anymore.
Yeah.
And you've got some
So I have
drainage.
some.
in that trench that they sewered, that hopefully.
I remember you saying that at the time, that was back in the '06 timeframe, and I think that's really been the case.
So at least it won't be quite as much of that, but when these things slough off, I mean, it's scary, a lot of stuff floats around.
The repair we did in '06 has held very well. I mean, you can look at it, you wouldn't even know it was ever repaired. It's solid.
Well, there's a lot of vegetation, a lot of poison ivy.
Yeah, the vegetation looked good.
Yep.
It was pretty solid.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And it's
pictures are
pretty,
good.
it's pretty steep.
Yeah,
very steep.
yeah.
Like, is this the one that was a staircase? Like, kind of in the,
There's an
built
old
into it?
staircase that somebody put in well before our ownership. It goes down to the revetment at the bottom, and we sort of viewed it as an invitation for kids from Peggotty at night to come around and kind of come up the back, so we stopped maintaining it. It's just overgrown now, it's completely overgrown.
What, you don't want the kids partying in your backyard?
Not really.
No, I don't blame you at all. I make a motion for a -3.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Negative's good.
Good.
That's what you want.
Have a good night. Good luck.
Appreciate it. Sorry to keep you so late.
So, no, I don't, we're the ones that kept you.
in the office, or you want to?
I'll pick it up whenever.
21 Gannett Road.
Tomorrow afternoon?
On March 2nd, 2020, during the 6:15 meeting at Town Hall, Scituate Conservation Commission will act on the request of Edward Tobin for determination of applicability of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Scituate Wetlands Bylaw to build an addition on property located at 21 Gannett Road, Scituate. Butters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. I'm Edward Tobin. I'm the applicant.
Sorry to keep you so late.
That's quite all right. Thank you for having me.
Now, do you guys have your info for this one? Do you want me to?
I
Share.
saw it in the,
Oh, what's Sharon? Over here.
So just describe it.
Sure, I've got a, I have a house, 21 Gannett Road. It's about 600 feet, 550, 600 feet back from the Atlantic Ocean. It's in the, kind of the minot area. I've got a fair amount of upland there, but since the FEMA map was realigned, this work that I want to do is just into the, I guess, into the A zone. So I was planning on doing this porch. I had approvals from the Zoning Board of Appeals to do this work. It was sort of an ongoing project, and as soon as I was about to start to build this, I realized that all of a sudden the FEMA map changed, which means that now I have to be in front of you folks. So wanted to make sure that I got this done appropriately. It's putting on a porch, well, it's really a sun porch that I may end up closing in eventually. It's about almost a 20 by 20, would be put on 6 sonotubes. That's the plan. Right now, there's some utilities just underneath this porch. The sonotubes are a great idea for me anyways. We're on town sewer. It's, you know, again, it was approved by the ZBA. The neighbors are all, you know, familiar with the project, what's going on here. And it was really just the fact that, you know, these sonotubes are, you know, the first floor elevation was so close to the FEMA zone.
No, I don't have a problem with what I can see here.
My only question is that the flood zone 16, are you complying with that? I mean, is the addition above that, or?
Yeah, it would be level with the first floor elevation, the existing first floor elevation.
Which is 15.
Which is
So
15.
It's actually,
Yeah, wouldn't be, I guess, there's a,
is that gonna?
there used to be a second floor deck. I think
Yeah.
I'm gonna maybe, hopefully answer this quickly for, there's a second floor deck, so the goal would be, so I have a door right now on the second floor that would open up onto a second-story porch, which is no longer there, because I took it down, we had a leak on the side of the house, we removed the porch. And if I were to raise it up even higher than the rest of the house, the first floor elevation of this addition, then what would happen is, and if I wanted to have a deck coming off
Right.
so where there used to be a deck, I'd probably have a 6-foot, you know, 6-foot ceiling height, so.
Right.
Yeah, I think this is showing the original deck.
Yep, I see it. So
Okay.
this is gonna be built at the lower level. I guess it's
Yeah.
just technically,
Yeah.
it's being built in the flood zone because they changed the zone on you.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Had I
So can
applied
we-
for my building permit for that particular aspect of it, we wouldn't be having, wouldn't be
Yeah.
having this conversation, but
Yeah.
Want to see these pictures, Frank?
Yeah, they changed them in 16, they changed them in 12 too, and then I think
We're changing
You
them
know,
again.
we're changing
Yeah.
them again.
I was,
July, yeah.
oh, no kidding. I mean, I think we had a big storm, I think it was March 3rd, about 2 years ago, if you recall. I
Riley.
realized today's the 2nd, so it was,
Riley, yep.
and so, I mean, the
Yeah.
ocean didn't, come up to this area.
Right, but
So I just,
we can approve it even though it doesn't comply with current,
Well,
But,
no, he's got to comply with building code
no building code, but FEMA.
and
Oh,
FEMA.
is that gonna just to affect your insurance now?
no, because if I'm doing it to the
Insurance?
same, my house is already at that level
Yeah.
right now, so it won't have a,
Yeah, I'm not sure how that works, like but I don't have a problem with the plan. But I
With
just
the-
didn't know.
Yeah, with the work itself, the sonotubes, I think that it's,
I think Doug's question is,
But
if this were to be a new house, this house would have to be built, first floor above elevation
16.
Yeah.
Right, so it'd have to be
So-
a foot higher than that, which would be horrible, because you'd have to walk up to the,
well, I'd have to walk up, and then I wouldn't have a second floor deck. The whole house, if you might see from one of the photos, you might see
right.
it just wouldn't, it would be impractical. You
Yeah,
just
no,
wouldn't do it.
I get that, I just didn't know technically what happens, and
He'll find out.
it's just because this happens all the time, this happens frequently, that the flood zone's changed, and I was working on one that had changed in the middle of the project. So when you
Oh.
come times to you're certifying to the as-built location, you can't certify that it conforms to the current FEMA zone, because it doesn't. It conforms to the previous one. So all you can do is put a little note on your flood insurance certificate that says this used to conform,
Yeah.
but it changed, yeah. So it's kind of a pain.
Catch-22.
Well, it stinks, because it's just, the water, I mean, maybe, 100 years from now, maybe it comes up. I'm fourth generation, my daughter's a fourth generation there, so it's,
You never know.
you never know, but it's been,
Don't jinx yourself.
I'm not
sir.
trying to. It'll,
Yeah,
All right,
It's changed.
but I don't have any.
keep your fingers crossed.
No, I'm good.
anything else in this one, Amy?
Frank's pondering.
No, I'm thinking about Doug's
Yeah,
comment.
question. No, I know. That's
With
what
this,
I'm saying.
because we have conditioned projects before, typically they're elevation projects or something where people are getting in above the elevation that's required. And I don't see the point in not making it the same house. I realize all the complications. I don't have a problem granting that, I just wonder.
Yeah, technically, I don't know what's, as long as we can do that. But he doesn't have, I look at it as just really not a viable option.
If someone came in
any
for a
case.
new house, we would tell them they'd have to.
They'd have to raise it up, right. But
Yeah,
if it's
that's
not a
the-
viable option in this situation, so I don't know how you can have anybody do that.
Say otherwise it'd be stepping up to this piece and.
Well, and I think we go up a foot higher too, right? So we add a foot
So
of
what's that?
freeboard to it.
Well, I mean, there's coastal requirements, right, for building code, you get meeting both FEMA and building code, depending on, like, this is an addition, so it's not a substantial improvement to the house.
Right.
Since I think maybe it's tied to that.
Well, that
It
was the
doesn't
other
have
part.
to make
If
it all compliant, because it's not a substantial
If
improvement.
it's less than 50% of the
Right.
value of the structure,
Yeah.
Okay, there you go, I forgot
yeah,
about
I've heard
that,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So, can I go
it's my
forward?
story and we're sticking to it.
Okay, I make a motion for -3.
Thank you so much.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, sorry you had to sit through the party.
It isn't too bad, it's only 8.
I'd like to pick it, well, to be honest, well, how does it, would you, is this something that they'll sign tonight? I may swing by tomorrow, because I want to apply for the building permit, and this was the only thing, this
You
is
guys
what caught
can
me
vote
up,
that
was the building permit. That's where all of a sudden it triggered everything. Wait,
Okay.
I might be in that.
Penny, move that along, will you?
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
Jen will, so in the afternoon, we'll be ready.
Okay,
Yeah,
that sounds great.
sure, thanks.
Thanks so much. Thanks, everyone.
I'm gonna,
Aye.
Go ahead.
Votes the next one.
204 Central Ave. Here's, they want an extension.
Help me out with that recommendation.
So moved.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah,
Second.
thanks for coming in.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I was like, where's Frank?
I was looking at you to do.
I'll do it.
You're running the show.
Doug?
Okay, we might as well.
Where's your gavel?
All right, we're gonna do some
Get the
orders.
gavel.
I make a motion, we accept the orders of condition for 58 Scituate Trail as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I make a motion, we accept the orders of condition that have already been written for FOMAB, that's, been written, that we just closed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I make a motion, we accept the orders of condition for 138 River Street, which was a raise and rebuild as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. I make a motion, we accept the orders of condition for 96 Turner Road, it's an addition as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then there's also, there's an request for an extension for two.
Yeah, we
did
Okay,
that.
We already did that.
sweet, and
The certificate of compliance, Amy?
was for a septic system,
Okay.
recent one, so it's all set.
Looked good.
Yeah, so we'll issue that.
Okay. That's, it on this, unless you wanna. The Driftway Park, the benches, the table, well, she just came in and started talking to me. I didn't know that you thought she was staying for the meeting.
Well, we put them on the agenda, we had corresponded with them.
Oh, they
and-
were on the agenda for tonight?
Well, just, we redlined them, we were gonna talk to them and give them ideas for a project in the park. Because they had contacted the TA's office, because they need to do community service hours for a high school class, or I don't know if that's a graduation requirement or whatever, but, so the idea was to spray paint the concrete tables at the Driftway Park. And so, in light of our pending project and other maintenance issues, we just kind of wanted to talk to them directly and maybe steer them in another direction, or at least get more information about their proposed.
Okay, that's what, I knew nothing about anything.
That's okay.
She came in, Barbara came in, and I happen to know Barbara Leiden from, she kind of got going on that project.
Is she a teacher?
Yeah, well, she is now, yeah.
Because somebody wrote me, and it was one of those, I get just emails to the server that's not like a personal email, it's just, you know, somebody emailed you and here's the question, and she was like, I'm writing you because these high school students need to do a project, and we understand that we can come in tonight, and so I said, yes, please come in tonight, so.
All right, so she just came in and she started talking to me and telling me about the project that the girls want to do. And I said, well, first and foremost, I heard about it, and my initial reaction was, no way, Jose, because of the maintenance. So if you're really serious about the project, number one, you need to find out what kind of paint will adhere to the concrete stuff, how long it will last. Those are definite questions. And I said you can go talk to them down the post office down North Scituate. They painted the side of that building. I said go talk to Dad's place on Hatherley Road. That's been painted for quite a few years now.
We would,
I-
would
But
we
maybe
ever, we
when
would
we-
never approve this.
Right, maybe what we really wanna do though is talk about it as a commission and
Oh,
maybe
yeah, no, well,
agree
I
that we
was
should
just-
call her up and steer them in another direction.
That's, well, the conversation went from
Paint a
there.
bench.
Yeah.
It was like
You
she
wanna
had,
paint a bench?
Yeah.
she led me to believe that she had been in talking to you and they were on their way out. She saw me, she came in. And we were talking, so I just told her, these are the things, because I thought they were coming back at a later meeting. That's how it was presented to me when she walked in, and I said, you definitely have to answer these questions. And so then she said, well, if they wouldn't let us do that, if we couldn't, you know, because they understood the maintenance issue, could you have some ideas? Oh, good. Yeah, no, they're looking for ideas, too. And then she said, oh, I'll let you get to your meeting, I won't keep you anymore.
Yeah, they probably
So
didn't
she
want
kind
to
of
stay for the camera
misunderstood
part
that
of it.
you wanted them to sit down and talk, and then they left. So
Right.
they're definitely open to any ideas. I told them that we were working.
Yeah.
A project had started down the Driftway, but we had to be very careful what people did and didn't do. That last year, we already had some people go in and remember that bench that they put in? And
Oh,
we
yeah.
had to, you know, and I said, so you're doing the right thing by coming here, but they're more
We
than
can
open
give
to
them
any.
plenty of community service. I've got a document with 40 lines on it.
All right,
Depends
well,
upon what they want
So
to
then
do.
maybe they
She'll
should
do
go
the
to a
thing.
trails meeting and get
Well, the thing
assignment.
is-
I don't even think they have
Yeah,
to, just like
no.
the scouts, Jen's got a good
Just
list.
assign them something.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
because she has to have it done before she graduates. So when they were leaving, she said, we'll be in your next meeting, because they have to get
They don't even have to come to a
Do we
meeting.
have an email address for them?
Yeah, just have them.
Well, no, not for the students. See, this is another one where they've got a teacher doing their legwork for them,
Oh.
so, I mean, I really like it when the students step up, honestly, but,
Well, she did make the young girl make her presentation
Oh, good.
to me personally.
yeah. It's
Oh.
nerve-wracking. You guys are nerve-wracking.
Well, one of them can email me, and I'll forward along the list that we gave the Boy Scouts.
Okay, well,
And-
so before I leave tonight, I will forward Jen the contact information for Barbara. And then we'll get
Yeah.
Barbara to give us the contact
Sure.
information for the girls, and we'll give it to you.
Yep, there you
Not
go.
girls, but the young
Yeah.
ladies, and then we can send them on their way.
Then the
Yes.
carrier pigeons will deliver all of
Yeah.
them.
You have people get with my people.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But it
Yeah,
really,
because
I
they-
am your
they'll-
people, so
they'll-
that works.
They'll do anything, they have to do a project, but that's,
there's a lot of concrete tables out there,
Yeah.
and I can see that going sideways a little bit, maybe
Well, a little bit?
maintenance-wise.
well, it could,
A
yeah.
little bit, just, you don't like it, do you?
Not at all.
Yeah.
Is
Well,
that a
I'm
secret?
just afraid of the maintenance, and then they'll look
Tables.
like crap.
Yeah.
in a
Yeah, it's
couple
like-
No, that sounds like spray paint, and then other people start spray painting other shit.
Right.
Stuff.
It's like graffiti, I'm picturing daisies.
I'm so sorry. There are no children that watch this.
She just swore on camera.
I've looked at the YouTube stats. What's left?
Slippery slope.
I know, I'm so sorry, guys.
Hey, listen, I've done much worse.
I'll leave the
I
meeting.
noticed though that they have swear words on the radio now though. They don't censor people.
What did you guys
like they used
cover?
to.
We haven't done, like,
is that?
anything.
All right.
We did the trails.
Originally, it's
Happens all the time anyways, right?
All right, so, did you update everyone with Mordecai Lincoln?
Oh, we were gonna get a letter of support together?
Yes.
Please.
Okay.
Well,
So Mordecai Lincoln is a, Penny, why don't you,
Oh, it's a CPC.
Briefly.
Project, very briefly. Years ago, I wanted to purchase this property. It's about 6 acres. It's Abraham Lincoln's great-great-great-grandfather's homestead. It's down North Scituate off of Mordecai Lincoln Road. There's a mill. There used to be a dam. We took care of the dam. That's long gone now. Anyways, the original house, which was built in 1692, is there. And then there's another house that was built in 1803. Okay, and then you have the mill. The mill is not a working mill anymore. Anyways, long and the short, I wanted to buy it years ago, but they too many restrictions. August, Chuck Ladd called me and said, "Are you still interested?" I said, "I sure is."
Chuck is the owner.
Chuck and his brothers. There's 3 of them.
Well, but just passing
Okay, yeah.
along.
So I got in touch with the Historic Commission and Doug Smith and Dave Paul. I took a whole bunch of people out there and we met with Chuck and they were all excited. for
This is short.
Yeah, this is
I know,
not,
CPC funds. Anyways, well, you have to get the background.
all right.
Historic would be buying it. They would be
It's community preservation money, it's sponsored by
Community
somebody.
preservation money, but the funds would all be coming out of the historic kitty. And they would take care of the historic houses, they would probably rent them out, like, we do the Abigail Bates House and the Lighthouse, the Meehan House is rented out in Old Oak and Bucket. So those funds should take care of the upkeep of the historic buildings. Conservation would have a CR put on the property, it's open, it's just spectacular. Jen's been out there, I
It's
did
really-
get Jen out there.
Yeah, so probably what Penny's looking for is for us to support it, and it's a beautiful piece of land. It's like, it feels really private and like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
It's like a micro Land's End.
Yeah, it
Really.
it does feel like that.
It's all grass area, you go out into the salt marsh. Jen took a picture of me standing out
I
in the
did.
salt marsh.
She looks great.
If this goes, if it happens at town meeting, it's a different type of open space. It's not trails in the woods, it is more of a park, it's more of, would put maybe some benches, some picnic tables, and possibly in time, after we get permitting and stuff, put a dock down there for kayaks and canoes. It is like,
6 acres, you said?
yeah, it's 6 acres, it
paint
goes
the
right out to the
Sure.
Gulf River, and so it's historic and conservation, so I have my fingers crossed. Please support it.
So
So
are
I'll
you-
take a
who's writing the
motion
letter?
for a letter of support.
Yeah. Second?
Till we get a
So
motion,
Oh,
moved.
I make a motion that we write a letter of support.
Second,
all in favor?
aye.
Great, thank you.
Pardon?
And if you wanna go out, I will be taking more people out. I've already taken 4 large groups out. And,
Penny will pose for pictures on the marsh for the second
I'll
round.
definitely post the pictures.
Okay,
Parking
Oh.
updates?
Miss Amy's been out there too, yeah.
must be a good one.
Haven't seen it.
Well, I'll tell you,
Well, maybe we'll make it arrange, figure out time for the commission to go out there.
That'd be great.
I
Alright.
am around 24/7.
Okay. Our parking and access projects are moving full steam ahead. Higgins McAllister is all rough graded, everything's in place. They put the
Good.
forms in for the gates, and that's pretty close to having a bulk of, it's probably in the 70% range right now of being completed. Same thing for the Bates Lane parking area and the trail that's gonna go up Bates Lane, the handicap trail, is probably in the 70% range or something like that, I'd say by now. Both of them have come along really well. And Crosby, it's a lot bigger project, but they're out to the Appleton Field. And we actually wound up having extra material, so we've created a sort of a mound at the upper end of the field so people could get up on top and view the mound view the field from the top of that.
The birds.
And, yeah, they've made their way through the wetlands, and they've got stone, and they've had some problems with water, but it's all in pretty good shape, and they're gonna start to build that road up. I think they have to wait for the culverts to be actually fabricated, so that's gonna hold them up a little bit from that, but we've been fortunate, good weather this
Yeah.
winter to get things done, and
They-
almost a little too, it would've been nice to be a little more frozen at times with the mud, but it's looking good.
Surprise.
Yeah, so we're pretty,
After waiting so long, it's just.
and our trail guys continue to be out there and get the trails cleaned up. Just, it's amazing. Every time we have, I think that last windstorm that we got, I think they had the trails cleared before the roads were cleared in Scituate. The emails go out to all of them, and then out they go, and then they're back and forth, and it's,
I ran into Howard yesterday at the Stop and Shop, and he was gonna take a walk out
um,
the Appleton
Saw him at the dump yesterday.
Yeah, he was collecting.
Yeah.
Him and Nancy, right.
Andy, you had a chance to talk with Amy a little bit about the Driftway Park, so you
Yeah.
getting up to speed.
Yeah, so I walked out with a pile of documents. I've been wading through Driftway history. But I made it through over the weekend, so I think I'm
Nice.
in good shape on that. Now we're looking at
And you're
options.
now our new resident expert.
Yeah, so I think I got it. I'm gonna try to organize my thoughts as a next step. But yeah, I mean, I think we're looking at revisiting the bridge over the Herring River, which would be fabulous.
I am so excited.
That, we wish we had never had to stop, but the
Yeah.
selectmen asked us to hold off because then everything went south
So that-
on the Herringbrook Meadows.
yeah.
We were ready to go, and I don't know what it's gonna cost us today, but that is definitely a CPC project.
It would be great. And I got, I went out and walked. I have some questions about other little sections and how they all fit together that I'm sure some people have history on, but I'm ready to push that ahead if we can.
So there was a couple of things for that. One of them was that Waterways folks wanted to chat with us at some point. Their primary concern early on was just maybe doing striping, some signage, just making the parking lot a little more defined, I guess, was their concern for right now. And I think we want to make sure that people have access to it at the same time, not make it just so it's for boats and trailers, but I think that was their hope, at least to make a little progress on that part. And I'm kind of curious if the dog park has taken some of the load off the Driftway Park. You know, a lot of people were parking at the Driftway Park to walk their dog. I don't know whether the dog park, I know that they were pretty full,
Yeah.
so I don't know whether, at some point after we have a chance to really think about it and talk about it some, what we did do with some of these other projects, like the parking and access, is we had some sort of open format meeting and let people know so that folks that use it or that have an interest can come in and kind of give their thoughts or concerns and get some feedback across the board. We've got it from selectmen and town administrators sort of saying, how are we doing with the Driftway Park? Should we think about more parking? If we're gonna add some of these other areas, how do we accommodate everybody? So I think, as we start to move forward, if we should consider something like that.
Yep.
Frank, how many cars actually fit at the parking lot at Driftway, if you park appropriately?
That's a good question.
I'm just curious, yeah.
I can find that number.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I've just never,
Like 38 or something like that.
is it that many?
Yeah.
If they park
I was
right?
gonna say 24, but yeah, 38.
There's parking on both sides, and
Yeah, no, I know that. It's
the one
just
that
in the
happens
summer.
is somebody pulls in with a trailer and parks sideways across
It
6 of
takes
them.
4 lanes and
Yeah.
then takes off.
That may
in
have
the
changed too.
boat.
That was from an original plan. I know there's been like stone blocks added and stuff to
Yeah.
folks
because
from
you're
driving
not
on the.
supposed to do that.
So it could have changed, but
I'm
I
just
can find
curious,
it.
because I'd hate, I don't know, if we need to.
Well, I feel like the porta potty that they have now, that wasn't always there.
And
Like,
we
at
don't,
which
we
point
don't,
did they
put that?
put that
we don't
there?
even know where it came from or who pays for it.
Yeah, isn't that
We're
weird?
not doing it.
So I think that goes, in 1980, there's an agreement with the Soil Conservation Service that's now NRCS, it's a federal agency. And in the it's a 50-year agreement that goes to 2030. And we were supposed to build a bathroom out there.
Build?
Yeah,
Well, it never
it
happened.
never got built. And there's a reference to the porta potty being out there, which I think is part of this 50-year.
But the
Oh.
porta pot, it's something fairly new, it hasn't been there.
Yeah.
It's been there for
Been there,
yeah,
quite some
Over
time.
10 years,
Yeah.
according to
Has
what
it
I was
been there
reading.
that long?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
Probably
know,
not that-
I drive around looking for porta potties sometimes, and I never really keyed in on that one.
It's been there.
Like it's-
And, yeah, well, probably not
The
that
last
one,
year.
but no, there's, I think at one point it went from like one that's handicap accessible or something like that, but.
Maybe they changed the color of it.
But I'm just curious, I
It
mean,
kind
that's
of
our
blends
park,
into the scene.
but we don't pay for that. I mean, I don't know whose budget that comes out of, but it's not ours.
It's all, there's this-
DPW
there's this- yeah,
facilities.
There's this big agreement, it's all in the picnic tables, the water spigot, the porta potty, it's all part of this
Huh.
50-year agreement. Which I'd love to know who interfaces with
Who drops off the
federal
porta
government on
potty?
that, because some of it's there, some of it's not, and I don't know what.
Well, sounds like we picked the right person for the job.
Have fun.
So
Yeah.
you really screwed yourself on this one.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
I was
you
all
know
in on
so
this.
many more details than I think, like,
No.
has ever been
I spent a little
uncovered.
time on it.
Wow.
But I would love to see that bridge go over the river.
Oh,
It would be
And
amazing.
a couple of connection points to some trails. So I don't know what the best next steps are, but
Wow.
ready to roll.
I'm so
Somewhere
excited.
there's-
Thank you.
There's a permit and plans for
Yeah.
that bridge. There were the plans, I remember seeing the plans.
We didn't permit it. We never got as far as permitting.
No
it.
hearing.
Okay. I thought, okay, that's probably when they said
There's some
stop. But I,
Invasive species and stuff. Those permits.
Right.
We should
Yeah.
probably set up some kind of like a subcommittee and do a focused, meeting and come up with a game plan,
yeah, because.
which includes public involvement
Right.
and then just probably
Well, I couldn't make
selectmen
the
and
last
other
meeting with
boards and
Andy, but at
things.
some point, maybe a few of us should just get together and
Yeah,
do that.
throw
Okay.
some stuff around, yeah.
All right.
You know.
See, now it's
get
20 minutes to
started
9, we
again.
don't have to hash this
Yeah.
one around tonight.
Sure.
No, I appreciate it, thank you. And then, Scituate Brook, what do you, any idea where we still gotta find somebody, or we put out a request? You gave Amy a whole bunch of different companies.
What about, what's his name, that said you'd love to do it?
Well, I think we gotta figure out what our goal is.
Yeah,
Like, what are we trying to establish? Like, are we, you know what I mean? There's a lot of different,
the end game for me
avenues.
would be to really clean up the brook.
Gotta start somewhere, that's all.
But
We don't know.
I guess that's pretty broad in itself.
but I mean, do we start at the harbor and go inland, or do we figure
Well, I would
out
think we would evaluate the
assess the whole thing
I
and-
think we want to assess the whole thing and,
areas of need,
yeah.
but try to reserve some part of the pot to actually do some action items?
I think that would be helpful to get it started, but also, I mean, we have Kyle who's offered to help us if, assume that we need some sort of base information that we can springboard to get some grant money and stuff like that. So I just don't know what the right piece is to start. And then we make our, applications to different agencies. Like, I think I told you with regard to the forestry program, DCR has we can go to DCR and get some funding for a forestry program, and then we can go to Mass Fish and Wildlife for some of these habitat enhancement ones. I can kind of make sense of that, but I don't have a clue how do we enhance on the brook.
Well, I don't think we can develop an RFP if we don't have goals. So, but I think it's a great idea to talk to Kyle about it, maybe involve Kyle.
Well, I think we have to find out what we'd be going
For a
after, and then
grant?
he can help us do the grant.
Yeah,
He's offered to do that. He said either that or the open space. He's more than happy to, that is his area of expertise to some degree, and he'd be happy to help us, because those are a pain in themselves. But just first,
he might also be willing to help on a quick assessment
would it,
of the area.
the other
so we
person
can
that's come to my
narrow
mind.
in.
Right.
Yeah,
The other person that came to mind for me would be just informally asking someone like Sarah Grady from what her thoughts are.
that's a good idea too.
Because she's with, isn't she the staff like biologist for North and South River?
She's Mass
She
Bays
was here
coordinator.
last week at the selectmen's meeting.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
maybe reaching out to Sarah and saying, hey, we got this project we're thinking about, can you give us a little more direction
Give us
and
some direction.
see what,
We want to clean it
Well,
up.
Andy's given us some names and the connection that you gave
Mass
us.
Wildlife, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, you could definitely tie it into the MS4 permit, so it would be, and if we went at it in that direction, we would be partnering with engineering and DPW, because we do have a federal MS4 permit with different requirements, so it could be that we're actually achieving some of the town goals while we're doing our own work of trying to figure out what needs to be done to the brook, like where the weak points are, what needs to be, maybe there's some low-hanging fruit of items that we can clean up that are tied to the illicit discharges, I don't know,
Okay.
storm drains, that type of thing.
Maybe we can lump some sort of just working meeting with a number of, rather than have it at our regular meeting, we'll try to find
Yeah.
a time that works out as a regular meeting, that we can just sit with a group of us and talk about it. We're
Yeah.
allowed to have a working meeting, even if we have a quorum there, as long as we post it.
We can post it, yeah.
That we're having a working, and then it's not lumped into something at 9 o'clock at night.
Well, and maybe we could get somebody like Sean McCarthy to sit in on it, because has good ideas.
Okay.
for RFPs and
Get in the watershed association.
what's to be done.
Because they're gonna be interested in going over the brook too for the driftway.
Yeah, they weren't,
Oh,
for some
yeah.
reason, when I asked before, they weren't as Scituate Brook is outside of the North and South River watershed, so it wasn't really in their bailiwick, but Sarah got really interested when we did Mordecai Lincoln Dam, because her outlook on it's a little bit
Yeah.
different, so I think at least getting somebody like that in to do that. Okay, why don't we do this? Let's try to maybe get a consensus of when there might be a good time to have just a working meeting, that we can start at a reasonable hour and hash over a couple of these projects. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to derail it, but it's 8:45. I'm ready to. And then Museum Beach, did you have any luck finding any grasses,
I do, I have a couple of emails with prices for grasses.
Amy, just a quick one on that, we don't have to knock it around too much tonight. Would it make any sense for us to reach out to that beach association that's close by and just say, here's what we're doing? So it just seems to me, if the people that live around there got out there and got everything off the beach on a regular basis, in the fall, they just took all their boats and removed them. During the summer, they had some stuff there, as long as it wasn't detrimental to the beach grass. I don't think that, I don't want to turn this into a huge production. And if they knew that that was our goal, would people actually get out there and remove those canoes, kayaks, whatever the heck is out there, before we have to go through all this?
Right, so we talked about, our newest angle was a beach nourishment or a dune nourishment
Right, if this-
project, and then we're cordoning off the dunes.
Right.
So any of the extraneous boats in the dunes would now be put aside, because they
Right.
can't be in the dunes.
Well,
'cause
we
the
do
brook-
think there's some, it's degraded to some degree, so.
Yeah,
As a way to deal with that, we'd do this planting, which would, like you say, would wind up putting fencing, and then it's gonna restrict some of the access and all that.
right,
sort
well,
of
and since there's a certain amount of lead-up time to get that organized.
Yep.
In the meantime, we could work on public outreach and just try to get the residents in the area
Yep.
to recognize that this is not something that,
John
It's
Danny,
good.
somebody spoke to him and he was gonna talk to that association down there. I can't remember.
well, I think both Frank and I have spoken with John
This
Danahy.
is recent, yeah.
Yeah, I spoke to him about a month ago, and he was in favor of it. And I think most people that you talk to are, but it's just how
Right,
it goes down
Right there.
to try to get the word out.
okay. All right, let's see.
All right, so real quickly on enforcement,
Mm-hmm.
there's a couple that we have that, we can take motions on pursuing enforcement on Herringbrook Meadow, which that's just formalizing silt release that they had,
Do you need a vote on that?
yeah.
And the motion would be,
Herringbrook.
Ratify the enforcement order. Ratify
so-
an enforcement order for
Toll Brothers?
Herring,
no, that's the
Herringbrook
one
Meadows.
on 3A going towards Marshfield on the left.
Across from Kennedy's.
Oh, that great big
Yeah.
clearing area. Yeah, okay.
So
There you go.
somebody want, Jen, you want to make that motion?
I make
to
a motion that
ratify
we
the-
ratify the enforcement order for Herringbrook Meadows.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then the other one is what we want to do about the site on Maple Street that has a pending notice of intent.
So with the
Just the,
farm?
yeah, the fill in the driveway, and the farm.
They came before us already.
They've come
Yeah, but
before us and
they've
they're
done stuff they're not supposed to.
giving us some new information, but in the meantime, they've been doing some unpermitted work and we've asked them to stop, just until we get the resource areas, confirmed and figure out what project it is that they wanna move forward with. But I think part of the challenge is that the owners live out of state, so they are back and forth, and when they come into town, they try to achieve a lot of different, things that they're trying to do with the property in a short time.
So do you want to just send them a letter, or do you want to give an enforcement? Do you want to send them a letter and just saying, we've noticed some activity, please don't do any more until, or do you think it warrants a fine at this stage? Or an enforcement order?
I mean,
I know we've had this discussion, we tried to make
right.
we tried to explain to them, don't do this until you keep moving, and they, I think, view it like, well, I just put some gravel in my driveway, or I
right,
tried to,
Yeah, it looked pretty minimal from the
yeah, it's not big, like
so,
a big, huge deal, you know what I mean? So that's why I kind of feel like.
You were talking to the engineer,
moving
weren't you?
Forward, yeah,
I forget who it is.
Gary
Okay.
James.
do you
Okay.
want to
I think
start?
a letter, let's start with a letter,
Okay.
because we had talked about, Frank, about, a fine,
Mhm.
but I just think that
Well, maybe
fine
say,
is a good idea, but on the other hand, we want to keep moving forward with this project rather than get stuck. And I think fining is going to stick this project a little bit.
well, why don't you send them a letter basically saying, it's been discussed, and, we don't want you to do any more work, and if you continue to do, you will face fines. And-
Yeah, give them a warning. I think.
Which is the same letter, I think, that we sent them last fall when they put in footings for the deck that they built, or the addition. They did an addition without
Yeah. permitted
footings. And
Well-
this was right in the same area.
Well, the problem
so-
was that the building department gave them a permit to do that. So they kind of like, well, we got permission from the town.
Yeah.
But you gotta come here too.
They were
Right,
cutting down a
Now,
bunch of
now they
trees
know,
too.
and they
Say
should.
that again,
They
What's
were
that?
cutting down a bunch of trees too.
Well, the trees, they contacted me about the tree.
Oh,
So they
good.
had, I think it was a dead, beech tree or something like that, so, I agreed that it should come down. I mean,
Oh, okay.
so we do that under a minor activities permit, but if they're gonna be making alterations to the buffer, they really should have an order of conditions.
Yep.
And they're just mid-process, so it's just really slow.
Okay. Well, I think a reminder of this, but,
Just a kind of a friendly reminder letter.
yeah, but I think it should clearly state that if they do it again, it
Then
probably
you're
is
gonna
out in
be
the fine.
fined. No
Okay.
more warnings.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay,
anything else for the agent?
I think that covers it.
Okay, so we got,
We did all this.
orders and conditions for,
No, we
We
did
did.
all
Already voted
those.
on.
oh, you did?
Yeah,
Yeah.
those are all done.
And the certificate of
Yeah.
compliance for,
Yeah,
I think you're just left adjourning.
adjourn,
awesome.
unless you wanna do something.
So moved.
Oh, a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
I'll
That felt
sign.
like a very long meeting.